Up, everyone. Welcome to episode 72 of Yorkshire Gamers A Reet Big Wargames podcast. And today we are staying far south of the avocado line. And I'm going to be speaking to two guys I've known for some time through the Analogue Hobbies Winter Paint Challenge. And that's Rousell and Hadley, Big Lee. And we're going to be talking about Posties Rejects, the group that they belong to. As always, a bit of background history with them, and then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about Salute and the. Going to say already success that the show was earlier this year. It's a bit late. I think most people have done their reviews and stuff by now. We had a bit of a technical issue, which meant that the recording for this was a week late, and then Bradford City got promoted to League One. Get in. So the drinking involved around that delayed me doing the editing as well. But we're here now, and I think everyone's had time to settle and think about it, and maybe now is the time for a longer format discussion around the show, as opposed to the 10-minute videos you've seen of all the tables and stuff. If you haven't already, have a listen back to the previous episodes. Certainly the last one, Company of Makers, really important episode. I think that one with a group of guys who are working with veterans and using wargaming as a way to help them back into civilian life. I know there's been quite a run of podcasts out recently, quite close together, and occasionally people miss one, but I think that's one that's really worth listening to. Anything mental health related, wargaming related, veteran related, all very important topics to me and many of you out there, and I'd love it if you give that one a listen. So it's got another long one, two guests it always is, but we have a right laugh, and it's worth staying right to the end when I have my own little individual rant about Salute. I'll let you get there and find out what it is. So, without further ado, here's the interview. Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to Yorkshire Gamers Reet Big War Games podcast. And today we are on episode 72, and I'm joined by two stalwarts of the hobby to discuss their part in this wonderful world of wargaming that we're all involved in, along with a side review of the recent Salute show down in that there London. My wallet is still recovering from 2 teas and a sausage roll. Whew. That was expensive. Anyway, my guests have both run successful wargaming blogs for 15 years or so, bringing the story of their wargaming life to the public through miniature adventures and Don't Roll a One. They're also part of a shadowy organisation known as Posties Rejects, who planned world domination from a garden shed near Gravesend. Dressing in red, they can often be seen putting on a big table at shows south of the avocado line. So let's see, quite literally, how the other half live. I've known these guys for many years through the Analogue Hobbies Winter Paint Challenge, a yearly worldwide friendly wargames event. And this year's the guys have done a joint 1812 retreat from Moscow project. And so we're looking forward to hearing how they've been sneaking white powder into the house, just in case the police are listening. It's always nice to have them, a nice chat with them at a Wargames show. So it's lovely to have them on the episode. And I'd like to give a big, warm Yorkshire welcome to my guests for the evening. That's Ray Rousell and Big Lee Hadley. Hello, guys.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. How are we doing?
Good.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
Now, this for the listeners, it will be the first time they've heard this. For us guys, well, not for Lee, for me and Ray, it's the second time, because we were chatting for hours last week, weren't we, Ray?
About 50 minutes, wasn't it? Waiting for Lee to log on.
Yeah, but
my ability to break tech is renowned.
Yeah, you did a top job, Lee, of not turning up. But we had a practice midweek, didn't we, mate? And we kind of got there.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is we still don't know what the problem was.
We don't.
I know what the problem was. You.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I was emailing backwards and forwards with podcasts of the people that run this. The tech support is really quite good. Actually, they do get back to you within 24 hours. And I think the last thing he said was it Lee, Big Lee, that you were on with?
Yeah,
I knew what
yeah.
just went. We fucking can't do anything with
us as well, and we were communicating with them, and they were very good, and a follow-up email afterwards just to check everybody was all right. So
no,
we still don't know what the problem was.
No, we don't.
I'm blaming it on my computer.
I think Lee, you were definitely a guest on Sean Clark's sadly missed God's Own Scale, weren't you?
Yeah, that was quite a while back.
Yeah, that was a while back. Have you done? Did you do Henry's podcast as well?
I did. I was saying to my wife only the other day, I like doing podcasts because it's the only time I get to chat to these people, people like yourself, properly. Because at a show we get like 5 minutes and then we're rushing off somewhere else, and the podcast is literally the only time we get to have a nice long chat.
Exactly, very true. And I'm like that with, people like Henry Hyde and stuff like that. He's so busy at a show because so many people want to talk to him that sitting down and having him to yourself for 3 or 4 hours is a wonderful thing. Have you done any podcasts before, Ray?
No, this is my first one. I am a podcast virgin.
Oh, don't worry, mate. We're very gentle. We always are.
Thank you.
Well, to be fair, we're not. We're quite rough on this podcast, but there we go.
I've listened to most shows, I know.
So it's not Bruising the Vineyard, though. It's not going to be that rough, so don't worry about that. So first thing we're going to do is the 4-minute challenge. So Ray, we'll go. You get you first. You're in the middle of the screen, and you were on first.
Okay.
So I've got nothing more technical than 4 minutes on my little timer on there.
Fair enough.
So the best possible 4-minute description of your wargaming life.
I shall try my best.
So, when you're ready, go.
Like most of your people you've interviewed before, I started out with Airfix figures, the 170. I can't remember what scale they are. 156 are they?
72.
When I'm 72.
The little ones.
Yeah. My dad was always into history. He had loads of history books, and he painted models, not to play with, but just to have up on the side. So that always got me interested in the same type of thing. And I used to do loads of drawings and stuff, and nick all his books and have them as my school projects and stuff like that. But me and my brother, we had nearly every single box of figures imaginable. And we used to set them all up on the carpet and then spend hours throwing marbles at them and killing everybody. And the ones we hated was the laying downers. Because they was a bugger to turn over with a marble. You had to be a dead shot from like 3 foot away. And my dad built us a castle, and we used to spend about an hour putting all the figures on the. It was about 2 foot by 2 foot. This castle. But then we'd have ball bearings, and you'd throw the ball bearings at the castle, and it'd all fall to pieces. And that would be in about a minute and a half. So the game was over in a minute and a half, and it took you 2 hours to set up, which is, sometimes like our games around in the shed. Yeah. Yes. So that type of thing, I played with soldiers until I was probably 11, something like that. Went to big school, girls, music. The hobby was gone. And it wasn't until I moved into the house I'm living in at the moment that I started painting figures again. But that was due to Posty, because Posty was my next door neighbour. We both moved in within a couple of days of each other. And me and my pals used to get together and play computer games and Risk and stuff like that. So I invited my new neighbour round, and he went, "You don't want to play with things like that. Come round my house." And thinking, oh Christ, what's going to happen here? Are we going to ever come back alive? And we played a game of 15mm English Civil War. I couldn't tell you what the rules were. All I know that was one of my mates, Serge, he leant over to pick some figures up, and Posty had used pins, and he had a whole whole unit of pike in his arm.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, and that was the downfall, and it's just gone on and on and on and on and on. And now I'm a bit of a megalomaniac, like every other wargamer. I've got fingers in every pie. That's it, really, I suppose. I know I'm only done 3.5 minutes or something, can I?
Yeah.
But
that's
me done.
Oh, awesome. You don't have to go to the end. You don't have to go to the end.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
Do I get you spare 30 seconds?
You get my 30 seconds, yeah.
Right, Lee, we'll go off with yours, mate. I'll press the button now.
Right, well, so like Ray, mid-1970s, I was probably 5, 6, maybe 7, and I was into airfix toy soldiers. I distinctly remember desert rats in Africa Corps, plastic figures with bent rifles, playing with them on the edge of the bath and things like that. And exactly as Ray did, line them up, and me and my sister would fire elastic bands at them to knock them over, not marbles. And in fact, my dad made me a wooden elastic band firing gun, which is on the shelf behind me.
Awesome.
So that we could knock the figures over from a distance. And of course, I'd occasionally accidentally raise my aim so I could hit my sister. But that was early days. But I wasn't much of a reader at that, at early age. In fact, I actually ended up having a special teacher at school to bring me up to the level of everyone else. But as soon as I started to read, that was it. I was rapacious. I read lots of fantasy novels, big into H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, Edgar Rice Burroughs, that sort of stuff. Tolkien after that. And lots and lots and lots of really cheap, horrible fantasy novels. But it wasn't until about the early 80s I got into the fighting fantasy books with some friends at school, and then somebody said, "Oh, I've got this game called D&D," and it was the red box D&D set, and we started playing that. And I still play with some of that group of friends from way back then. We've tried other role-playing games. We played Call of Cthulhu, Hollow Earth, various other things, but D&D, that's our sort of game. And I started painting figures then. Early 80s would be my first awfully painted figure. I painted with enamels, and I will forever remember my first kill. A carrion crawler. A brilliant game. But we inevitably, as a group, we ended up moving on to some sort of war game. We ended up doing Warhammer Fantasy Battle. Had a huge undead army. No idea where that went in the end. Crawling around on the floor, my knees just ache thinking about it. I couldn't do that now. And then we went on to sci-fi games. Adeptus Titanicus, Epic 40,000. But then it was like we finished school, went to uni, got a job, and it wasn't that I wasn't gaming. We were still playing D&D, and I was still doing a lot of that in the background, but I wasn't wargaming for years because the rest of my group weren't interested in wargaming, even though I was. And it wasn't until sort of like, I don't know, the late 90s, turn of the century type thing. That sounds weird, doesn't it?
Turn of the century.
I went to my first game show, and I was sort of re-hooked on figures and painting and so on. And then, of course, the social media, the internet came along, got me Facebook, me Twitter, set up my blog in 2009, and it weren't very long after that. These two strange geezers contacted me on my blog saying, "Oh, we're going to be at a show, Selwig at the Crystal Palace. Give us a shout if you see us." And they come over and they tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Come back to ours for a game."
Silly boys.
I was a little bit nervous, yeah. But again, it was Posties Rejects and down the shed, and they've never been able to get rid of me since. And that's when I've always wanted to do historical wargaming, but that was my first real opportunity. Oh, there you go. I'm out of time. But it brings you up to a good point there.
Oh, my alarm's going off now. No, that was a decent rundown. It just reminds me of, we've talked about this a number of times, where during this phase here, where people talk about their introductory story into wargaming, and how successful a wargaming serial killer would have been in the 1970s and early 80s.
Definitely.
You know, my story, I went into a library. I was borrowing a library book on Napoleonic wargaming, and the guy behind he was the librarian, said, "Oh, we do a bit of wargaming. Do you fancy coming round to our house?"
That's it. That never happened nowadays, would it?
No, Robbie
carted
Roddis
off.
was Robbie Roddis was exactly the same. You know, him and a mate, some guy in northeast said, "Oh, come up to my flat. We've got some wargaming going on." And how all of us have survived, I just do not know.
I know we're going to discuss the group a little bit later on, but I have to say, I came back from that first game with the Rejects, and my wife said, "Oh, did you have a good time?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What are they like?" I said, "They're a strange bunch." She said, "You're going to go back?" I said, "Damn, yeah, of course I am."
I think one of the great things about our hobby, and it's something I discussed a little bit on the last show, is how it brings people together of completely different backgrounds, completely different personalities. You know, there'll be a lot of people who might be scared to speak to me because of my occupation, but 5 minutes sat down talking about weird wargaming or Italian Risorgimento or Papal Zuaves, and we're best mates. I just think it's a massive, massive leveler.
I think you're right. It is. You know, we've all got something in common. You know, we could be doing different jobs all over the world, but we've all got a love of painting little silly soldiers and pushing them around a table. And you can, you know, a lot of people we've met. We've had people from all over the world come and play down at the shed just through the we all love the same things. And it's a very strange hobby. It's a very weird hobby. It's a very nerdy hobby. But you just can't get enough of it. You know, it's like a drug, isn't it? The more you get, the more you want.
It can be a nerdy hobby, but it can also, and I think Lee, you touched on this in your last video of the myths of wargaming. Is that myth that it's a stuffy, boring hobby where people never have a laugh? And I think you guys are the same. I think your kind of philosophy on gaming is the joy of it and the fun and the laugh and the mickey taking and the banter. And that's what I've had all my wargaming life. I've never had, well, occasionally, years ago with the Mad McAngus McKiller, who used to come to our War Games club, and we were playing Newbury Fast Play Napoleonics. That's how long ago it was. Yeah. And he'd just table you, as they call it in these days. I just didn't enjoy it.
No.
Well, you know what? Ray will testify to this. I don't have a great track record of being on the winning side. My dice were abandoned me for many years. But I come home and my wife will say to me, "Did you have a good game?" I said, "Yeah, really good." She says, "Oh, you won?" No, not necessarily. That's not exactly how I'd characterise it. But the point is if anyone was stood outside the shed of war in Stuart's backyard, they would hear a bunch of blokes laughing their head off for hours on end. We are loud and rowdy and always laughing, aren't we?
My missus says it's like listening to a bunch of kids at nursery school. Because we're all laughing and screaming and shouting, and but you know that's what we do. You know, we just have a good time, have a good laugh, and take the piss out of each other, which is the most important thing.
99% of the time, very good natured.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
We do have the wall of shame. Anyone who dares to complain or makes a rules judgment against the umpire, Stuart, they go up the wall of shame.
Oh dear me!
It's very good. And what you were saying earlier about we're a very diverse bunch. You know, different outlooks, different walks of life. But we're all equal around the games table. We're all capable of throwing rubbish dice. Thankfully, I have passed the dice curse on to poor old Richard at the moment, so I'm quite happy to be shot at for a while.
Poor Richard.
Bless him. Yeah, the Leeds War Games Club has always had a chairman's dice curse that always lifts as soon as you're no longer chairman. So it does go around the place. You were talking about dodgy sci-fi and horror novels during your 4 minutes, Lee.
Mm.
James Herbert, was that a dodgy one? The Rats and the Fog and the
Yeah, I remember reading those.
Survivor.
I've read all them as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were
I,
dodgy.
like I say, I started reading late, and
Yeah.
I was sort of one of these kids that they siphoned off 3 or 4 children that were in junior school that weren't reading properly, and we had a special teacher, and it didn't take long, but as soon as I was sort of up and running, I was borrowing my dad's books, many of them probably inappropriate, war books with foul language in and so on. I probably shouldn't have been reading them, but I was rapacious. I would read everything, but it was fantasy and science fiction. There was obviously, my dad was into his war books and stuff, so. Gosh, Orc Squadron is one book I remember reading at school, and the teacher was most, I don't know, they didn't know whether to be impressed or upset that I was reading a book that really was aimed at an adult. And that was, about First World War fighter pilots and this rather damaged lead character. It's, we all have our different routes into wargaming. Obviously some people were into discover a lot. I mean, I've had this conversation with lots of people who say, "Oh, we discovered a Featherstone or a Charles Grant in the library, or was introduced to it at school." Somehow that all passed me by. But as I say, I got into figure painting and stuff through role-playing games in my group at school. So, and then we did dabble with a bit of war games. I loved it, even though I was terrible at it. But they weren't so keen, so we did it for a few years. They moved on and wanted to continue playing D&D. So although I talk about that wilderness years, that period when I wasn't wargaming, it wasn't I wasn't gaming, I was doing stuff. And again, everybody you talk to, they have the same. They hit their 20s, career, women, children, and they have a decade or more when they don't wargame. I suppose it's the path of life, and we've all got to do it.
Unfortunately, I never went through that. I carried on with the war game. I think it was because I work shifts, so at like 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody's telling me to do anything, and there's no kids running around the place. So I've always had that spare time to continue on doing what I was always doing, and I've got a book. I was reading a book because although my wife wouldn't let me in the room where she was giving birth to our son, because I'm just shit. I would have fainted. I've just I'll admit it. And she's farmer's daughter. Get the fuck out of here! You're just gonna faint. Which was fine by me. So I was reading a book on Hitler's mountain troops. Was the book. So I'm going to present that to my son with a little note in it saying, "This is the book I was reading when you were born," which not many other people can.
No.
Oh dear! Did you read a lot when you were younger, Ray? Did you have things like, I'm thinking of Sven Hassel and Leo Kessler and those sort of things?
I just used to read football stuff at that time.
Yeah.
I used to buy the Shoot magazines and Match and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'd sit there and be engrossed in them. But the only thing I did, I can't really say I read them. I more looked at the pictures. My dad used to collect the magazine that came out every week, the World at War. And he had I think it was 8 to 10 volumes of these magazines, all in book bound, big old thick books. So I used just to flick through them, read bits and pieces, and that really got my juices going as a youngster, especially the Germans. I always loved the Germans. I don't know why, but I can remember the picture of the 2 German Africa Corps blokes on the motorbike and the sidecar.
Yes,
famous picture. And that always and I drew that when I was a kid so many times because I just loved that picture, and I always wanted one of the German peaked caps, but never did, and obviously you can't really nowadays.
it is strange how it's a completely different world now with that sort of thing, especially. I mean, I don't know about your parents and grandparents, but my grandfather was in the desert. As he always said, I was there when the Italians were there. And as soon as the Germans came, I buggered off. Uh, he got transferred to Aden to work on some oil projects when the Germans turned up. So he was most grateful for that. But he never had that. I don't know, hatred or vicious. It was like, you hear a lot about the people from Narvik I've been reading about recently, where the Germans and the British should meet up after the war. Obviously not during the war because they were fighting at each other, as comrades in arms, if you like, rather than bringing other stuff into it. So I didn't think twice about looking at a German tank when I was younger.
No, I remember saying to my dad one time, because he played a game of the marbles with me, knocking the figures down. And I said, who do you want to be, the goodies or the baddies? And he went, there wasn't any goodies and baddies. And I went, what? What do you mean there's no good? There's got to be a good and bad. He went, no, they was fighting for what they believed in. So, and I always chose the Germans for some reason, because I just like the uniform. Because the British and the American uniform, it's boring, really, isn't it? It's
dull.
Boring, drab, but there's just something about that smart German uniform, that the Africa Corps one or the field grey. There's just something.
We needed a Savile Row tailor.
We did,
I
think,
do the British uniform.
Yeah. Get rid of the
so
ties.
we clearly gone to some bloke who did farming overalls for John Deere tractors or something, rather than a stylish designer. And I will always say, if you're cruising down the high street looking for the chicks, then a Jagd Panther, you're going to pull more chicks in a Jagd Panther than you are in a Comet or a Sherman.
Our comrade in arms, Smithy, Reject Smithy, he doesn't do it now, but he used to do reenacting.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he was always German. He was in. He wasn't in the SS unit, thank God, but he was in the Fallschirmjäger one and a German Alpine one. But he come down to one of our games one time. I think he wasn't living in Gravesend at that particular time, and he got the train to Gravesend and then walked down. I said, Smithy, I'm surprised you weren't captured and taken away and never seen again. He said, what's the matter? You can't come walking around in a bloody Nazi uniform, for Christ's sake. But he thought, I don't see a problem.
Oh, fantastic. So you both picked up that love of history and in your childhood, and then Lee, you didn't really kind of bring it into the wargaming side for quite a while. You were
I was always interested in the history, in Second World War history in particular. It was my dad's passion. He was fascinated by it. Neither of my grandparents fought, because one grandparent, my dad's dad, served in India in the logistics, so he wasn't front line. He was sort of basically the cook, I think he was. But he was out there right till the end of the war. In fact, I've got his discharge paper and his receipt for his greatcoat on the boat on the way back and all that sort of thing. My other granddad, on my mum's side, he wasn't a well man. He had like severe asthma, so he joined up with his mates, but he got invalided out. He didn't even make it through basic training. There was absolutely no way. He couldn't bloody breathe. Serious asthma. And I suppose I should count myself lucky, because he ended up working at the Woolwich Arsenal, where I met my nan. So if he hadn't been invalided out, I wouldn't be here. But ironically, his asthma saved his life more than once, because obviously he didn't fight, and a lot of his friends did. He lost quite a few friends who'd signed up with him. But also there was one particular story he told me. He was like most men of his generation. He smoked, even though he had asthma, but he couldn't go in the air raid shelter because everyone's smoking, and he just couldn't breathe. So he'd stand outside the air raid shelter, and they had this air raid shelter with a big concrete roof on it. And the story goes, and I've never checked to see if this is real, but the story I was told was that a bomb landed next to the air raid shelter, blew the walls out, and the concrete roof fell in and killed everybody inside. But he was outside having a fag. So yeah, obviously I talked a lot about Second World War history of them. And my dad had, Ray, you were talking about the World at War magazines, but Dad had something like the picture post books. So the whole war in the Picture Post magazine, and they were all bound. No idea where they went, but I was like that. I'd flick through those, and every war film going, we'd be watching that, and the documentaries and all that. So I was steeped in the history. It's just didn't have an outlet for it. My group were role players, and we were into fantasy gaming. They weren't interested in wargaming, and aside from the occasional TV program where you saw old men in tweed pushing figures around a table, there was no apparent outlet for historical wargaming until I started posting pictures of painting on my blog, and these two strange geezers said, "Come and join our group for a game."
So what period then, Ray, would be your? I know that you guys dabble in a lot of stuff and a lot of different, very similar to myself. But if you had to pick something out as your most interested in period, what would it be?
God, bloody hell! That's a massive question.
We're all megalomaniacs.
Yeah, that's it. I'll probably tell you about 10 different things. Well, I suppose the one I always go back to is the horse and musket era. The first figures I ever painted for myself when I first got into wargaming proper was 7 Years' War. The guys, after we'd met Posty, they said, "Oh, you're going to come back round for another go?" I thought, no, that's too nerdy for me. I can't be seen to be.
Can't be seen with them.
I can't be. Yes, these bleeding. It's terrible. But it was a couple of weeks later. Some of the guys had got the Age of Reason rule set, and it's got a great 7 Years' War campaign in it. And they said, "Do you want to join it?" "No, I don't want to join it. No, I'll come round and have a dabble every now and again." No. And all of a sudden, I'd bought a British Army from Essex Miniatures. So that was my start. That was my first period. So that horse and muskety period, and I do love the a bit earlier the 9 Years' War, the League of Augsburg stuff.
Yes,
because it's an in-between period. It's not English Civil War, and it's not War of Hispanic Succession. And that's the period if I had one period I could choose to play for the rest of my life, it would be the League of Augsburg 9 Years' War, because there's so many different, one of your favourite word, factions. I know you hate that one, but there's so many different periods in that time scale. You can have a Highlander army, you can have an Irish army, and it goes on and on and on. You can go and do the Dutch in New York, and it's such a big period, and it's very, very interesting. And
very colourful, very colourful as well, isn't it?
It's very colourful, yeah. And I try to bore the lads about it all the time. Don't I, Lee?
Don't know what you're talking about, mate.
Are you a player of what rules do you use for that?
Well, I did use because I haven't played it for quite a while now. I did use the League of Augsburg. Beneath the Lily Banners. That was my rule set of choice. But he has brought out another set that predates them basically, and it changes the rules to kind of the Donnybrook, in between Donnybrook and which is the skirmish set, and Beneath the Lily Banners. I've had the rules now for a couple of years and never played them, but I do understand that Barry Hilton's bringing out a new set, a new updated version. So
he is.
I've already got that in order.
I'm very similar to you in the fact that I've got the last version, and I've read through them and I've never played them because I was doing a 10 mil War of Spanish Succession army.
Yes.
And he's brought out another version before I've even had a chance to
I
try
know,
the
he's a
last
sod,
one.
isn't he? He is a sod.
I think I made of money.
I've called him that many times.
Yeah. He's cost us all a few bob.
Yes,
Anyway,
yeah.
And Lee, are you a World War II man, or what would you go to as your favourite?
I've got three areas that I'm in. World War II, North Africa in particular. I really like North Africa campaign. Just that whole period, just really interesting. Loads of 6 mil stuff for North Africa. The only thing is I'm sort of hunting around for a new set of rules to try, and I want to get them out. I haven't had them out in years and years and years. I was using Flames of War. I don't know why, because I really didn't like them, and they came out of a new edition, and I thought, right, that's it, I've had enough. And then I moved on to other periods. But I want to play with them again, but I'm trying to, I'm terrible at reading rules. So when it comes to picking an alternative set of rules to use within my existing model collection, I will eventually get round to it when Ray finishes spending my money on our current project.
Well, that's funny what you said there, because when you said you're terrible at reading rules, this is why, because I'm terrible at reading rules. I can read it 20 times and I still ain't got a clue what's bloody going on. So this is why we've done a joint project together, so we can bash heads. And, I might have read a bit that Lee's not read and vice versa, so we can hold hands and get through the game.
So this is the 1812 Retreat from Moscow project that you've been working on together. So how did that come to life, and what kind of stuff are you using with it?
You might as well tell this story, Ray.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting stuff ready for the Analogue Hobbies challenge.
Yes.
And I was going to be doing some the Battle of Culloden in 2 mil.
2 mil.
2 mil. Because I've already done Almanza.
That's some hard work doing tartan in 2 mil.
Well, it is, yeah, exactly. There ain't none, is there? It's great. But and I was having a little bit of, how am I going to do that? I don't know how am I going to do these. And I was pondering what I could do, because I've got 2 file boxes full of figures that I've pre-primed from years ago for the challenge, but never got done. So I thought, it'd be good to do something else. I'd like to do something different. And I was thinking, the Retreat from Moscow, but that's a lot to do on my own. And I thought, I know someone who might be able to hoodwink into doing it with me. So I made the telephone call. Lee, you fancy doing this? Yes, that sounds good. That sounds good. And before we'd put the phone down, he'd already been on the bloody computer and ordered figures.
Oh, there we go.
Even before I had.
That's keen.
It's a period I've always been interested in, and I'd got one of the Blandford books on the Retreat from Moscow only a few weeks earlier, so it was like this was a sign. And so when he mentioned it, I thought, and like Ray, I wouldn't have even thought of tackling it on my own, but splitting it between us, all the terrain that we won't use for any other game, we can split between us, and doing one army rather than 2. I mean, I have painted plenty of 28mm figures in my time, but it's all fantasy figures for role-playing games. I've not painted 28mm historical figures for an army, individual figures and character figures for the challenge and things like that. So it's not like I haven't painted 28mm, but I've not painted a 28mm army in probably 20 years. So I thought, well, this is going to be a challenge, a proper challenge. But I really liked it, and I was looking, like you say, he's on this phone call, and I'm looking at some of the figures online, and I'm going, oh, shiny, must have. And a considerable amount of money, time, and effort later, and we still haven't finished, have we, mate?
Well, we originally decided, because we was going to use sharp practice. Again, I've got the sharp practice rules. I've read through them. In my small mind, I can't get my head around it. I'm one of these people who needs to play the game, and I can go, right, that's what that means. That's what that means. I get it now. I get it. Where if I can read it, it just doesn't sink in. and I know Lee's the same. And I can't think what the point of the thing I was going for then. I'm lost.
Had you played Sharp Practice before?
No, never played Sharp Practice, but yeah, I wanted to use
one
them.
game.
Yeah, you'd gone to one of them Lardy days.
I went to one of the Lardy days and played a game.
Yeah.
This was before Ray mentioned it, but when he said Sharp Practice and Retreat from Moscow, I was sort of like, ooh.
Yeah, we originally, that's what I was trying to think of. We said, right, we'll limit it to 8 units each. That's all we're going to do, 8 units, and that will be enough. And that should get us through the challenge, the painting challenge as well, with nice few points for that. Brilliant. I've just painted my 17th unit, and I think you're on your 15th.
I've got about 15, and I've got another 5 waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I know, absolutely ridiculous. You know, because you can only have about 8 units in the rules.
Yeah, I think it's something I haven't mentioned for a while, but I have in the past, that I am just shit at skirmish gaming. That's why I do big games all the time. And the famous example, as you know, the guys who game round here, we said, right, we're going to do North Africa, World War II North Africa, early period, kind of up to when the Germans arrive, up Crusader, and I can't remember the one before it, and Battle Axe. And we're going to buy one box of Perry's plastic infantry and one tank each. We've now got 300 vehicles. We've got 300 vehicles and just boxes and boxes of stuff. We could quite easily fill a 30-foot table with like no gaps between the troops. So yeah, it's just I'm not very good at it.
It is an illness, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be cured, but yeah, it is. When I look, I've got all my Russian army for the 1812, and it's all in boxes in front of me, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, like, you're mad. Where am I going to put it? And we haven't even played it yet. I mean, we really have got to organise a game just to get some models on the table and play test the rules of ourselves, so we learn the rules.
Yes.
Because like you say, Ray, I'm the same as Ray. I can read rules, and most of it won't sink in. I need to play it, and if we just have a get together, we'll work through it. And we're doing it completely back to front. What we should have been doing is try and do a play test with somebody else, and then buy and paint the models. But it's just the period. So it's a very important period of history.
Why do it the easy way?
You always think, no. You always think
I'm easily led.
200 or 300 quid into a project, you think, I could have tried this with some like paper counters, and work the rules out. But no, it just doesn't happen.
The thing is, I mean, as you'll know from what I've done on the painting challenge and what I often post on, I like 6mm. That is my scale of choice. 15mm, I've done quite a bit of 15mm stuff. But I haven't painted 28mm historical armies. I haven't painted any armies in 28mm for 20 years. So, you know, this was completely different for me. I mean, I've enjoyed it. I'm really pleased with my results of the painting. I'm quite happy with the quality of it. But I am shocked at how much money I've spent. And I'm thinking like, I'm not even finished, and I've already spent enough to buy about 6 or 7 6mm armies. You know,
I'm not even
counting. In fact, I have got.
Oh, no.
I've got 3 6mm armies that I was going to paint in the painting challenge. They're all stuck on sticks and they're primed for the 1066, the Normans, Saxons and Vikings. And they're all sat in the tray because some idiot said to me, how about we do Napoleon's retreat from Moscow? So that's next year's painting challenge.
What figures did you go with in the end? Where did you go to?
They're a mixture, really. The first figures we bought were North Star muskets and tomahawks range, but then we've both bought from Perry Miniatures. I've bought a few odds and sods from Essex, Wargames Foundry, Muraski, Front Rank, and I've got a couple of Trent miniatures in mine as well.
Oh yeah, they're nice. They are
Trent, very nice. A bit big, very nice. A bit big,
yeah.
But
it seems to be the trend, doesn't it? Of stuff, that scale creep, as they call it, of things just getting bigger and bigger. I've got, I'm doing some stuff with my Italian War stuff at the moment, and you look at the Wargames Foundry stuff, which is still brilliant, but 25 plus years old, and then you put them next to tag figures, and the tag's just slightly bigger, and you put them next to the Perry figures, and they're slightly bigger, and you put them next to Gringo 40 figures, and they're massive.
Massive Gringos. I bought a few of them. I couldn't believe how big they was, the Gringos ones.
They're huge. I mean, I have to say that having done the award-winning.
There you go.
The award-winning Battle of
I wondered how long it would take him to slip that in.
I don't mention it. I never mention it.
That's twice so far. How many more are you going to get in the rest of the interview?
Oh, hundreds. In fact, you can have a little side bet at home now when you're listening. On the number of times that I say award-winning, there's 3 during the course of the... Anyway, but the difference between the Gringo figures and the Perry figures, especially the cavalry is a huge difference.
Yeah.
But nobody said anything at the table. I mean, I don't think they were being polite. I just don't think anyone noticed, because big units on all same figure type together as a unit on a big table, you not noticing.
There's only one person who does notice them, and that's the person who painted them. I don't think anybody else sees it. They just don't see. They see a unit next to a unit next to a unit, but it's only us, the person who's painted it, can actually see it and is annoyed by it. But it's just one of the things.
I think I can be, especially, I don't know about you guys, but I can be massively hypercritical of stuff. You know, I'll post a photograph up and I'll notice like a slight dot of colour on the side of a helmet or something like that, and it'll drive me nuts. But like nobody else will notice it.
Nobody sees it. Yeah.
I mean, we do tend to abide by the 3-foot rule. You know, does it look good at arm's length? And we're not competition painters, but we had both our stuff out when we finished the painting challenge, and we got both armies together in the shed for a joint photograph. And I was amazed at how similar we'd managed to get our 2 armies in terms of our painting styles. And certainly the basing just brought it all together, because we'd pre-agreed how we were going to do the basing, even down to a formula for the snow. You know, so the consistency across the 2 armies is incredible. And, you know, like you say, you end up going, oh, I've missed a bit there, or that's got the wrong colour on, or you are critical of your own stuff, but you know, when you put it all together, I think it's not going to win any competitions, but it's certainly we're impressed with it. And we're looking forward to there's more to paint. I've got Cossacks on my painting table now, so add a bit of colour to my army, and more Cossacks in the post.
So, what did you decide on a snow formula? And a top tip for wargamers here: don't import fake snow from Colombia. It's going to get you locked up.
We did think about that, but we decided not to, didn't we?
Yeah. There's a photograph in my that I took. I bought some snow. Woodland
snow.
No, yeah. Woodland Scenics in the big plastic bottle, and it came wrapped up in grey plastic. And I tore the corner off, and all you could see was this brick of snow inside. And I thought, this looks very dodgy.
All I can imagine is a group of cops in a drug squad seeing like the text conversations between you two, going, have you got the snow? Oh yeah, I've got it. I'm just working on the percentage of snow too.
Yeah, we're going to cut it.
We're going to cut it.
What we're going to cut it with?
Yeah. Oh dear me. So what did you go for in the end? What is your snow combination?
Bloody hell! It's the Woodland Scenics, the big pot that Lee said, and it's just PVA with a bit of water in it. I can't remember what the. Can you remember what the?
We didn't have exact percentages, but what we said was the consistency. It needed to be moist, but without being runny.
There you go.
That sounds even worse, doesn't
it? If you've just joined this podcast, we're talking about wargaming.
But the point is, because it's slightly moist, it does adhere to the bases. So you can apply it with a spatula or whatever, and it will stick. And when it sets rock hard.
Yeah.
Does it look like so?
It does actually.
I think it's as good as any of the commercial products out there.
It does look pretty cool.
And cheaper.
Mm.
Yeah, because I've got a lot of snow to put on a lot of fjords for Narvik for next year. So
yeah. No, well, that wouldn't have scenic stuff. It was about £14, I think it was for a big pot. And I'll just mix it up in a jam jar, pour some of the snow in, a bit of glue, a bit of water. Oh, no, it needs a little bit more glue, and then until it gets to the right consistency, like Lee said, and away you go. And the thing, it's really odd, but it doesn't dry in the jam jar.
Right.
So it's always, just add a little bit of water to it just to moisten it up again, and and away you go every time. That's great.
I think the key that I found, because I made a couple of batches during the course of the painting challenge, was don't add too much PVA, because that dries clear, so you end up with slightly transparent looking snow. You don't want that. So you do need
yellow snow.
Yeah, you definitely need more of the scenic snow in the glue, but it needs to be just moist enough that it will adhere to the bases. And like I say, you apply it with a spatula, and then you can stipper all the top with a brush or whatever. So we wanted a nice rough looking snow, like it's been trampled, rather than smooth, pristine snow. And I say, when we got the two armies together and compared our effects, actually, despite having only talked about how we were going to do it, the two results were remarkably similar. So it looks like one painter's done the lot, which is excellent. So
the figures are only block painted, but then we've just put ink over the top. I do like a bit of ink myself. I always tend to use ink on figures because it's
Winsor and Newton ink
used to be
classic artist ink.
Yeah,
Pete
Brown. That was always my favourite.
Pete Brown, Nut Brown.
Yeah. The trouble is with them, I find, is they tend to pull a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
And you have to be, you can't ink the figures and then walk off and let them dry. You've got to sit and play with them and poke them and wipe that bit of ink off. But we've been buying the Warlord ones. Yeah. In the little Villaggio bottle type ones, and mixing half and half with I can't remember. Is it the dark and the light strong tone? Half and half of each of them, and that just comes out okay. Just let that lather it on. It all sinks to the bottom, and it all goes into the creases nicely. And then a nice bit of matte varnish over the top. And
I found you need to, when I ink them, the 28mm figures, I will have to go around and wick off some of the stuff where it's pulled at the bottom of coats and things like that. But other than that, and maybe a little bit of cleaning of exposed surfaces like the hats and things that you don't want tide marks on, it's come out really good for that. But you mentioned the Winsor & Newton Pete Brown. I find that's perfect for 6mm figures. So I dilute that 50-50 with water, and I use that on all my 6mm figures because I like the fact that it pulls. It's perfect for
it works for 15s as well. That's what I use for my 15s. That's from Reject Richard.
Yeah, Pete Brown, P-E-A-T Brown for colour, not Pete Brown, P-E-T-E Brown, the runner of Tag Miniatures.
No, that's it. Yeah.
I'm sure he's very good as a brown overcoat. But there we go. So we'll just move on then to the Venn diagram of wargaming, which is kind of what we're talking about here, and that's where we break down painter, collector, historian, wargamer as our 4 different parts of our Venn diagram and how they fit together. So Lee, where do you see yourself within that group of 4 sections?
So I've always been a painter, right from the early days of playing D&D. So I've always painted figures. So definitely painter. I love playing war games. Don't get to play enough, like most people. Although internet playing across Zoom with other players has increased the number of games we get in.
Yeah.
Definitely a collector because I can't get rid of any of my stuff. I sold an army once and I'll never do it again because I regretted it almost instantly. So I was thinking about this. So painter 30%, wargamer 30%, collector 30%, and I would say 10% historian. And the only reason I do that is because I don't like appropriating the title historian. I'm an enthusiast. I'm passionate about history, but I'm not an academic. I don't have the discipline or the academic rigor of a professional historian. And I do feel like if I was to call myself a historian, it would be like me calling myself an astronaut because I would strap myself to the top of some idiot's rocket and gone into space for 11 minutes.
To be fair, that's all you need. All you need to do as an astronaut is sit there. I mean, I annoyed all the fishermen.
Apparently, that is the case.
I annoyed all the fishermen in the last episode, so I'll annoy all the astronauts now. I think there's less astronauts than fishermen. But yes, I know. I can see what you mean there, for sure. But having listened to the show, my opinions on historians. They can't make the bloody minds up about anything, and so I'm not a historian because I make my mind up about stuff and stick with it, and don't change every 5 years to sell a book. There's only one certainty in life, and that is that everything changes. And the same goes for history. It's constantly being reevaluated, new materials, new analysis. So I've got no problem with history shifting as our understanding of it does. But like I say, I'm not. I will go down the rabbit hole the same as every other wargamer. I will really, I'll buy a pile of books and work my way through them, and I'll go all that fine detail. But I still couldn't. I wouldn't call myself a historian. I don't know. I know other people do. I've had this conversation on my channel before. But I personally, I would just say I'm a history enthusiast, passionate, as most wargamers are, I think. Yeah. Ray, how do you see yourself on the old Venn diagram?
Well, I'm not going to be really boring here, and I'm just going to say exactly the same as what Lee said. Apart from, I'll go 25% across the board. I am a historian, but I'm an amateur Ray historian. I read what I read, I like what I like, and if I don't like it, I might push it under the carpet and ignore that bit to do what I believe was the history of a certain period or doing what I'm doing. We definitely don't game enough, as Lee said. There were times when we used to game at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. Probably back in the early 90s before Lee come on the scene. But
the two things aren't linked, I promise you.
His fault. But I mean, I'm probably more of a collector than anything, though. A collector and painter is probably the two I'm the most, because I've got armies that haven't seen the light of day for 25 years. I actually own an Italian Wars army in 15 mil.
Ooh, yeah, that's what I started with.
Yeah, and I've got absolute tons of it, tons and tons and tons of it. But I could never find a set of rules that worked for me.
Yeah,
I did use Age of Discovery for several practice games, which kind of worked well, but I kind of just left it in the end and thought, no, I don't like it. But I have bought the ones that you reviewed, the Furioso ones. So hopefully one day I'll get them back out and have another go. One day.
Hold you to that, Ray.
Yeah, I would. But yeah, so and I've got other armies that have just sat there for years, but I don't want to get rid of them. But
no. I can't get rid of stuff.
But the thing is am I ever going to get to game with them? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
But
do you have a figure count? Do you know how many figures you have?
I'm too frightened to count them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I would be upset at the number it come to, probably.
Yeah. No. Lee, have you got a figure? Do you know?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's not in the tens of thousands, because it's mostly 6 mil, obviously. but couldn't possibly count. I'd go boss eyed if I tried. And like Ray said, I'd probably have a heart attack if I actually genuinely looked at how much stuff I've got.
And we don't want the we don't want the wives to listen to this podcast. And,
No, exactly.
Well, more to the point, I'm worried that if I know the true nature of my collecting obsession, I might have to get the building structurally improved to cope with the weight.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Very, very true. My wife, occasionally I'll sell stuff and she'll say, "How much did you get for those?" And then you can see her eyes clicking.
Yeah, ching, ching, ching.
Oh, because somebody asked me many years ago now, when I was being interviewed for something, how many figures have you got? The same question I'm asking you now. And then one evening, a couple of days later, I was up in the games room. I might have had a couple of whiskies, and I went, "How many figures have I got?" One. And then I had to leave like a little note when I either got too drunk or too tired, and then come back the next day and count them all. But yeah, very dangerous.
Well,
very dangerous.
Posty, the leader of the Rejects, I'd hate to think how many figures he's got. It's
we
probably
think our collections are bad.
Yeah, it's probably over 500,000.
Wow,
it is mental the number of figures that man has got. Absolutely crazy.
That is crazy. So we'll just finish off this first introductory hour. It's always when there's two people on, it's always long. We'll just have a quick chat about, because it's not going to come up anywhere else, about blogs and YouTube channels and stuff. So Ray, you have Don't Throw a One.
Yep.
Which has been around for quite a while, hasn't it? 15
years. Yeah, 15 years. 2010 I started it.
Kind of the golden age of blogging when you started.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
It was. It's me and my pal Francis, who used to be one of the Rejects, that he buggered off back to Ireland, the silly sod.
Yeah.
We both worked together, and we started the blogs at the same time. We was basically just to catalogue what we was doing in our hobby. Because I used to write everything down in a book, and I thought this is getting tedious. We'll stick it on a blog. Oh, that's a good idea. And then we'd have a battle of the blogs every day, putting on a post every single day for about 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then unfortunately we had to move jobs, which was very sad.
And do you keep? I mean, do you keep it going? Do you put stuff up there now?
Yeah. I try to do. I've got no schedule of posts. It's just a post appears when a post appears. I try to do 4 a month if I can. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, and it's just an update basically of what games we've played, what shows we've been to, and what I've been painting. And that's it really, and it just goes on and on and on and on. I think blogs are a dying breed. They're being taken over by the YouTube channels, like Lee's YouTube channel, him there, and podcasts and stuff like that. But I think there'll always be a space for a blog. I don't think they're going to die out completely. But I think
there's things you can do on a blog that you can't do anywhere else. The longer form posts, the orders of battle, and that sort of stuff that disappear on Facebook and
you can go back,
bore people to death on YouTube.
What was that battle we played? That Egyptian game we played. And all right, hang on, let's look on the blog. Oh yeah, Christ, that was in 2014, and it's there in front of you straight away. So that blogs are to stay, but just not so many of them, I'm afraid.
Yeah. You still get quite a bit of interaction. I was looking at the... I've got a bit of a rant later on when we talk about Salute. Well, I've got to find something wrong. Your Salute post... no, was it the Salute post or the recent post you put up on where you mentioned coming on here? You got like 20 or 30 comments on it, so you're still getting a lot of interaction on that.
I get a lot. It's mainly the same people who have got their own blogs, and I find it's only fair if they want to comment on mine. I will comment on their blogs.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same kind of stuff as me, basically. You know, they're doing their own battle reports, their own figures, and it's just nice to get that little bit of feedback from fellow bloggers and people who are not got blogs as well, obviously. And it just helps keep it going, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think the best bit about blogs becoming less popular is I'm getting less of the Vic rat from India who wants to sell me £300 worth of advertising space or whatever.
Yeah.
Those every day it'd be like weeding out.
It would be
spam.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I don't get too many of them anymore. I might get a couple a week.
Well, we're going to speak to Mr. YouTube in a second, but
we call him the blog tart.
The blog tart.
Yeah.
You never went down that road, Ray.
No,
you've got
I'm
a face
too lazy.
for blogs, have you?
I'm too lazy. I can't be asked.
Honesty. It's the best part about this podcast. Honesty. So, Lee, then you've got Miniature Adventures. Did that started as a blog, didn't it? About the same time?
Yeah. So that was February 2009. I'd sort of got into social media all about that year either side of that. You know, got my Twitter account and Facebook and all the rest. You know, like everyone else at that time. And blogs, I become aware of these blogs, and it was some really interesting stuff. And I thought, right, I'm going to use this as a way to stimulate me to paint more. But again, at the time, it was mostly fantasy stuff because that's what I was gaming. Yeah, and I still post on my blog. I still keep it going, but I use it mostly now as a way of linking back to the videos that I'm doing on my YouTube channel. So I'll put a copy of the a thumbnail with the YouTube channel on there. But I do occasionally do just blog-only posts. I'd be loath to get rid of it because, like Ray, it's a record. You know, it's like a record, a journal, if you like. I'm often find myself going back and looking stuff up, and I mean, I'm always struggling for material for me Sunday videos, and I'll often go back through my blog, look back a few years and go, oh, I wrote that. I wonder if I can turn that into an article or something like that, into a video. So, you know, and just going back and looking at things I've painted before, I get that I've done stuff, you know. And if it wasn't for the blog, I wouldn't have been a reject. So, of course, I've got a special place in my heart for that reason alone.
Oh, perfect.
So
what was the reason then to go on to the YouTubes? Did you get a casting call from Steven Spielberg, or how did you decide I'm going to do YouTube?
I'd always wanted to do it, but I didn't have a dedicated games room. In 2019, my eldest daughter moved out. She'd got a place of her own, and we had a big move around. My youngest daughter moved out of this my what was to become my room, decorated it up and turned it into my operations room, and I suddenly found I had a room space to do it. And literally almost at the same time, along come this nasty little thing called COVID, and we couldn't go to games or anything like that, and it was like, well, what else am I going to do? So I just started doing a talk to the camera, and it sort of evolved from there. The only thing I would say is I did set myself some parameters at the beginning. It had to be short video content. And again, I'm talking to a guy who's already, like you say, an hour and 6 minutes into this podcast.
Introductory section.
People like yourself and Henry Hyde do these massively long videos, and people do games reports that are hours and hours long. I thought there was a gap in the market for short content. You know, you've got 15-minute break, you can watch a short video. So I've set that as 15 minutes is sort of like my upper limit. So I've even done battle reports that are under 15 minutes.
I think it's a good area to aim for, and certainly, you know, when your stuff pops up on my channel, then, you know, I'll be having a cup of tea in between doing something or having a break at lunchtime, and I think, right, I'll put it on now because it's 15 minutes. It's not. Yeah.
Well, I tend to break my painting and hobbying down into 15-minute chunks as well. So if I've got a big project, I'll break it down into 15-minute chunks. You know, 15 minutes is enough time to ink some models or stick some models on bases or something like that. So I can break a project down into 15-minute chunks. It doesn't matter how long I've got, because I don't want to neglect the family and all that. So if I've got 15 minutes spare, I can get something done. So so the same sort of mentality sprung over into doing the blog. It was sort of like, well, if I'm going to do it as 15 minutes because that's my time period. I have occasionally done some longer stuff, but short videos, and then I put links to those back onto the blog to keep the blog going. And occasionally write a little extra on there. 'Cause like you say, there's things you can do on a blog that you can't do on a channel. You can share documents, you can share information that other people can use, and it's one of the things I love about blogs. I mean, I know that they are sort of, I wouldn't say dying out, but they're perhaps less fashionable nowadays. But they are a great way of sharing information. I mean, YouTube is as well. You can share a painting tutorial and stuff like that. But if you've got a document and you want to share something that you've written, I mean, I did one thing on my channel. I did a scale guide, so just basically loads of different scales and how what brands match up with them. And I don't even know where I got the information from, but I cobbled this thing together and I put it on my blog. And it's the most viewed page on my blog by a country mile. And clearly people are still going and looking at that. So, I'll be loath to take it down because that's a sort of almost like a free resource that other people are clearly accessing because it's still receiving hundreds of views a month.
I still pick up stuff, orders of battle and scenario ideas from other people's blogs. So it's great that they're still out there.
I mean, I've got a load of information for our 1812 project from other people's blogs, uniform guides and stuff like that. So they're a fantastic resource of information. And I know there are other alternatives now. But I would be a sad day if blogs disappeared. I think I still think they've got a place.
So did you always have this format on your YouTube channel of kind of the question of the week, or did that develop?
That sort of evolved. It sort of developed over the first year, I think. So I got into that routine. I mean, I come from the perspective that I know nothing. I'm an idiot that just likes to talk to a camera.
Yes, he is.
And Ray's nodding his head. But the point is I put a question out, I'll discuss it, but I then say to my viewers, what do you think? Am I talking a load of rubbish? Do you disagree? If you've got alternative, what are your experiences? And I really enjoy. It may take hours to put together a 15-minute video, but I enjoy reading the comments afterwards because that's where you learn stuff. People sharing their experiences and their knowledge. And thankfully, I very rarely get trolled. But that's what I enjoy. A talk. That's why I call them my talking point videos. It's a bring up a subject, a quick discussion of it, and say, right, run with that. Let's have a conversation about it. And I'll get hundreds and hundreds of comments on some videos, and they're fascinating. And I've learned an enormous amount just by listening to my viewers on the channel. That's why I enjoy doing it. It's the thing that keeps me, even when I'm struggling to come up with a topic and I know I've got hours of editing in front of me, I'll do it because I look forward to reading all the comments.
You stick some topics in the mix, Ray? Do you kind of say something hoping that Lee will go right?
No, normally you can't get a word in edgeways with him as we're talking out tonight.
True.
I mean, I think I might have said one thing one time, but you asked us some questions sometime. You like pre-ask us the question, didn't you? And then
because we have we'll probably talk about this in the next section, but we have a Monday evening paint and chat session where the group get on, and sometimes I will run a question by them, just if I'm just trying to formulate an outline for a weekend topic. So they're my focus group.
Yeah.
Have you? I'm bringing this up because it might have happened to me a couple of times. Have you ever kind of thought of a topic and then gone, I can't do that because I'm going to really, really upset everyone?
Yeah. I've got a couple of topics where I've written a script, and then because I will always write the script out. And I've written it, and I thought, oh, that's really good. And then I've read it again, and I thought, I can't do that. I'll be banned. I'll be cancelled in a second. Someone's going to take offence, and it's not because I'm being particularly controversial. It's just the nature of the internet. There's some topics you don't go near a barge pole.
Yeah. Are you able to give us the topics? You don't have to.
I've got a brilliant one on diversity within the wargaming community, and that is bound to annoy some people.
Really go badly. That could really go badly.
Another thing, I always try and keep politics off the channel as well, and the blog. Well. It's not that I'm not a political person, but both me and Ray are very politically aligned people. I think we're fairly well informed. We've got our own opinions on things. We read a lot of that sort of stuff, but I try to keep it off of the channel because I like it as a safe space, if you like. You go to watch the video or read the blog because you want to get away from all of that. You want to get away from the news and stuff. So I very rarely get political conversations come up in the comments, and I usually try and kill them as quickly as I can.
Yeah, I did. They're still in the can, so I may bring them out. But I did a video on a video review of Warlord Games French Napoleonic 28mm Lancers, and there was so much swearing in it that I ended up listening back to it, and you're just angry, Ken. You're not reviewing things. You're just angry because you've paid money for these and the shit. And then I did another one where I picked the 3 War Games magazines, War Games Illustrated, Miniature War Games, and War Game Soldiers and Strategy, and I went through them from the point of view as me as an old school big game historical war gamer, and I haven't brought that one out yet because that's kind of good. What the fuck's fucking ducks with guns? What's fucking? It's a fucking jousting chicken here. What the fuck's that?
Yes, definitely. Ray would be on you with that one. He's not a fantasy man, are you?
So yeah, because I'm not in the best books with some of the magazines, so I need to make sure that I will appear at least once every now and again. But yeah, you never know. I might bring those out. But we'll call a break to our quick introduction and move on to part 2. Absolutely does my head in. Anyway, we're back in the room, and for the second part of the big game chat, we're going to have a little sojourn down the history of Posties Rejects. I mentioned them in the introduction, and Ray, you kind of mentioned the initial start of it. So you move into this house.
Yeah,
and there's this guy next door,
lunatic next door, called Stuart.
Yeah, who's not a serial killer.
Not we've
found out yet. Not that we know.
He's always digging the garden up though for some reason.
Is he? Oh right. Oh, that's Fred. That's Fred and Rose round at the weekend to do with the garden digging. Yeah. So with it, how did that progress from there then? Chap moves in next door.
Yeah, like I said earlier, he moved in. You know, my mates used to play a lot of sensible soccer on the Atari.
Yeah,
they'd all come round. We'd have a sensible soccer night, and then one of the guys brought round this game called Risk, and we all got into Risk. And then I think it was Smithy brought round. Oh God, I've got the name now. The samurai game. God. Should have written it down. Shogun. Yeah. So we'd play Shogun, Axis and Allies. We'd all play them, and then I said to Stuart, "Come round and have a game with us." And he come round and played a couple of times. And that's when he said, "Oh, you need to come round and have a go round of my stuff round here." I was thinking, "Oh my God, okay, oh, Jesus, I can't be going around playing with toy soldiers. I left that behind when I was a kid." But you soon get dragged into it. Initially, it was kind of all revolved around me and the people I knew at the time. Obviously, there was Stuart, who later we gave him the nickname Posty because he was a postman. He was the only postman. Right. None of us are postmen apart from him.
Yeah. I thought it was like in the hitman sense of the word that he always delivered.
Well, he does,
Kind of,
yeah. He
yeah,
does deliver, yeah. Poor Posty. And there was a few of my Richard. I'm related to Richard, and two of my school friends, Serge and Smithy. And it just, gradually somebody else come along. I started to do a job, and Francis come in, and then other people. One of Richard's friends come in, and it was just went on and on and on and on, building up different numbers. We're not a wargaming club. We are basically a group of mates who meet up whenever we can. There's no set date. It's just a ring around. Posty, give us a call. Right, I'm doing a game next Sunday. Napoleonics. Do you want to come? Yeah, okay. Or no, I can't make it this time. But in the early days, we were lunatics. We really was, because I can remember one game, a 6mm World War II game. Not sure what the rules were, but it was going on a little bit long, this game. And we started at 10 o'clock. We always start at 10 o'clock in round Posties, and we actually finished the game at 2:30 in the morning.
Good quality.
Yeah, and all because of Sergit. Sergit wouldn't give up. He'd lost the game about 8 hours before, but he wouldn't give up. And in the end, we just said I was going to kill him. Literally, I've got to go home. And poor Richard, he spent the night in his car because his missus had locked him out. So, but this was going back. That was in the mid 80s, I suppose, something like that. In the mid 80s. No, it must have been the 90s. Must have been the 90s, early 90s. And then Posty originally started gaming in his front room. He had a very, very small front room, but he had to get a 6-foot table. He had to chisel into the fireplace about 2 inches. So there's dedication for you.
Good lad, good lad.
And we wouldn't be able to do it now. We all had to go on our hands and knees and crawl under the table to get to the other side. But I don't think I'd be able to get back up there now if we were still there. But then he bought a shed, I suppose, about 98, something like that. And it takes up nearly the whole of his garden. It's 19 by 12 or something like that, the shed.
Oh,
so that's
lovely.
Massive.
Yeah.
So we've got a full 14-foot by 6 table in there. So we can do big games, we can do small games, we can do any kind of scale game we want.
Well, I was going to say, when I came for my first game, we were using the whole table.
Oh, right.
And it was sort of like, I was expecting a 6x4 game in a couple of blokes, and there was like 10 players and a 14-foot long table and hundreds of miniatures, and I just thought, I'm never leaving.
Oh, that's good to hear. I was just going to say that story about the guy being locked out for staying out late wargaming is just fucking brilliant, because
it is good,
most people are out on the piss or meddling around with somebody that they shouldn't, and he's out playing toy soldiers and he still gets locked out.
Yeah, he said he woke up in the morning with the sound of the milkman delivering the milk.
Oh, that is a fantastic story. That is brilliant.
He'd probably kill me for saying this now. He'd probably kill me.
No. You back in the day, one of my friends, his wife absolutely hated us, and we would game in his garage, and we had to go to the local cafe to go to the toilet. She wouldn't even let us in the house.
Blimey.
And she would just literally, I can still remember her face now, she would literally stand in the kitchen and stare at us.
Yeah.
And it's just weird. I've not heard from him for a long time.
I mean, we do know, but we've got to say our respective other halves are reasonably understanding of our bizarre hobby, aren't they?
Yes.
They do.
Yeah.
They laugh at us, and we let them laugh at us because we know we're ridiculous. But it's a lot less offensive than some hobbies, isn't it?
Definitely.
I think one of the key things for kind of our group, I'll join us all together in the way that we take our outlook at wargaming, is that none of us take ourselves that seriously.
No.
And I think that's a big part of the enjoyment.
Yeah.
You know, if you're getting upset about cuff colour or a faction, we need to get angry about them. I mean, I'm not mentioning it on the podcast, but I was watching this video last week, like because I try and keep up with latest trends, even if I'm not interested in it. So if it comes up on a podcast, I can talk about it or with a reasonable bit of knowledge. And so I watched quite a lot of review stuff on new games that are coming out. And I was watching this one on Company of Heroes. It's called. It's a Kickstarter, but it's kind of like a cross between a board game and a war game. A bit like Axis and Allies. It's got the models, but on a cardboard, on a card terrain and stuff. And this guy's talking about it, and then he starts talking about factions, and he talks about the British faction and the Soviet faction and the American faction, and I'm just fucking shit. And then he goes, and I've picked one of the two German factions. What? What? This, the Germans aren't a faction, and the Serbians are fucking two factions. No. and I thought he would go like, you know, SS and Abwehr or Wormstadt, whatever. But no, it was Eastern Front Germans and Western Front Germans. How? Oh, anyway.
What?
Anyway. We've all got topics that make us twitch occasionally, but on the whole, we're a fairly laid back type group, aren't we? So
we try.
I said that once. I said, well, I think wargaming is a really relaxing hobby, and very, very rarely do I get upset about it. And then I went on to list all the things that upsetted me, like unpainted miniatures and round dice. And after I got to like 25 things, I went, oh, dear, quite stressful. Yeah. Quite stressful, this hobby, really, isn't it?
We do have our moments, don't we?
Yeah. So
well, I mean, Lee, as a group, sorry, I'm cutting in there. I'm just going to say, as a group, we've been taking in people, weren't we? I mean, I came in, I can't remember, was it 2010 or something like that? And then we've had other players join us since. So, like you say, we're not a club. We're a loose affiliation of friends, and Stuart will put out the call, or one of us will run a game. That's the beauty of it. We've got a great big table. We've got our own collections and maybe nowhere to play. I mean, this my little operations room here. I've got a 5 foot by 3 foot table that as most of the time is my work desk. So I very rarely get to play in here, but I can take my stuff down to the shed and run a big War of the Roses game or whatever it might be. So we've all run games at one time or another, haven't we, in the shed, or most of us have. But the point is that the call can go out. Who can make this week? We're going to play this, or Stuart might keep it quiet and we'll all turn up. But if we don't make it, it doesn't matter. There's another game in a few weeks' time.
So is it that popular? Is this why all these lads are coming across on these small boats from Europe? They're getting to Dover. They're getting to Dover and going, I want to go to Posties Rejects.
Yes, they love it. They love it.
Yeah. So we picked up a few waifs and strays at shows, haven't we? So,
including yourself.
And what then brought you to start doing games at shows? Because I've seen you put on a few over the years. To go from that, because like you say, you're not a club, you're a group of friends. To go from that to putting games on.
Well, I kind of bullied Posty into doing it, the first one, because I weren't going to do it, because I was too scared. But no, that was at Broadside. I don't even know what year it was. It must have been it must have been 10 years ago now, at least. And we put on a big 15mm World War One game.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember the name of the battle, to be perfectly honest. It's on my blog. You might be able to find it. And that was great because we was using all these TSS tiles.
Oh, yes.
All with the big bomb holes in it and everything. And the blokes from TSS was over in the corner. And they was very pleased because they sold a lot of their terrain that day.
Yeah.
Only because of the game posted, they come over and thanked us. But yeah, I mean, that was the only reason, you know, because I thought, because of the blogs, I'm not on the blogs looking at what other people are doing. I thought it'd be really great if we could go and do a game. But we always do Broadside each year, and we take it in turns doing the game. Last year was it was my turn. I did the Haitian Revolution.
Popular.
Yeah, it's a different one, isn't it? Yeah, nobody knows about the Haitian Revolution, but hopefully.
Was that a positive? Because that's what I said about my Battle of Mentana game, that nobody knows anything about it, so nobody can come up and go, oh, that's wrong.
I like to do things that are out of the norm, that people don't do. And the Haitian Revolution was one that I thought, I'd seen one person do it on their blog, Stuart, and I'm sorry, Stuart, I can't remember the name of your blog. And I thought, I really like the sound of that. It's different. It's, and at the show, it went really well. It looked good. Spent a lot of time making the terrain. Who did the year before? I can't remember now.
That was me, wasn't it? With me, French Foreign Legion.
That's right. Yeah, the Laurel and Hardy game. Yeah, that was great.
Laurel and Hardy game. Yeah. But it was like two games at once. Sort of, we had a proper war game using Men of War would be kings, but we had a separate set of cards, and Laurel and Hardy were running around the table where to pick up things and get off the table. So it was almost like two games in one. But that was fun. That was award winning.
Do you try and do demo games, or do you try and do participation games?
It's only demo games. I don't really want people touching my figures, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's bad enough letting the guys do it, but some greasy little Herbert coming along handled my figures. How dare you? How dare you?
Okay.
Get off. But yeah, it works well.
Have you gone anywhere else than that show? Have you ventured to Salute or?
Not putting a game on, no. We did do a tiny little show called Replay. That's in Brompton Barracks near Gillingham, which is not far from where the Broadside show is. Was that a year before last we did that, and then we couldn't do it last year. But I'm hoping, touch wood, whistle, and everything, that we're going to do it this year. And if we can get our finger out, then we might put on the Retreat for Moscow, or a Retreat for Moscow game. We have been asked to go and do other shows elsewhere, but I don't think we will, to be honest. I think we're happy enough with Broadside once a year and Replay perhaps once every year. I think that just about does us, again, because we're not a club, it's just a
we had played a game. We did what was the game in Sid Cup? The show in Sid Cup.
Oh yeah. Skirmish.
Yeah, that's not on anymore, is it? But,
again, that was another little show. Unfortunately, that COVID was the death knell of that show. And you put on a couple of tanker games, didn't you?
Yeah. Literally, that was literally days before the first lockdown, because I remember debating whether we should go or not. But actually, there was hardly anyone there, and it turns out that was the last one.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we did do the other game as well with Barry Hilton. That was using all his stuff, wasn't it?
We did a demonstration game with Barry Hilton at the docks, Chatham docks. He did his Chatham game, his attack on Chatham with the Dutch.
Yeah, we did the attack on Medway in 1666, the Anglo-Dutch Wars, and Barry brought all his lovely terrain and lovely ships down to where the battle was actually fought.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we fought it where the battle was there, so that was really great.
Excellent.
So that's what we've really done, isn't it? I think I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. Is it easy enough for you guys to pick the next game at the shed? Do you have your favourites? And like some people, fucking hell, we're not doing that again.
Well, we kind of fall into the same routine. It's normally Posty. Posty does probably 9 out of 10 games that we play in there, and he picks what he wants to do. But what we really need to do is to pick one period and game that for 4 or 5 games, because we're flitting from period to period to period, and I'm playing one set of rules in my head, but we're playing another game on the table, and that's not just me; it's the other guys as well. And you're thinking, how do these rules work? What rules are we using? But we've said that I don't know how many times, but we've never done anything about it.
On the flip side, it does mean that we've got a wide range. I mean, it was years of going to games at the shed before there was a repeat period, because Stuart's collection is insane, and he'd pull some collection out of his backside and like, I've never heard of this war, and it was years before he brought back something out again. I think the first game I played was American Civil War game, I think it was. And it was years before that came back out on the table, or before I played it again in the shed. And then, of course, like I say, we bring our own stuff to the shed, so we get a wide variety of periods. And sometimes it's Stuart's sort of his own little customised rule sets that he's written himself based on other bits of rules and stuff. Sometimes it would be a commercial rule set. So when I brought my Wars of the Roses stuff to the shed last year, I used Test to Resolve, and we've done Donnybrook and stuff in the shed, haven't we, and stuff like that. So we do occasionally use commercial sets of rules. But it just means there's a lot of variety. It's just we wish we could play more often, but life and all that. Yeah.
We find that we will stick with sets of rules because we're very similar to you guys in that we will rotate stuff around and maybe not play something. We might play one period with one collection of figures once every couple of years, so there's no drive for us to change rules every 2 minutes, because we'd have changed rules twice in between games. So there's a lot of stuff that we've only just recently gone from Johnny Reb to Pickett's Charge for American Civil War, and Pickett's Charge will be I don't know whether he's brought the GDA 2 version of Pickett's Charge out yet, but it very quickly goes out of date. So, but we just stick with it. It's easy enough to remember that way.
We are a bit. I think as a group we're tinkerers with the rules. We're always. I mean, Posties, I say, he's got a load of rules that he's written himself, but they're all based on really old rule sets where he's simplified it, and a lot of the mechanics that he uses are similar in different games. So you can tell one of his sets of rules, and there's nothing. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I wouldn't say his rules are 100% original, but they're distinctly Posty, because they all feel very similar in some respects. You've got flavour for each period and so on, but the same sort of mechanics often pop up. But we played commercial rule sets, and then we go and change them because nothing's perfect.
Everyone does.
Yeah, it doesn't fit what we think it should be. Whether that's right or wrong. Yeah. I don't know.
We won't mention Fire and Fury because that gets us angry every time we play, and we still love it.
Do we? Do we though? I don't know if we do.
We keep coming back to it.
I know. It just that's a set of rules that when we first played it, I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
Now it just makes me want to jump up on the table and roll over all the figures and kill everything, because it just you throw that D10 and you keep rolling ones.
Yeah,
I might as well have stayed at home and done the ironing for the missus.
Next door.
Next door, yeah. Jumped over.
But the thing is like, it part of it is as well. I mean, again, fantastic. I'm glad that Stuart hosts these games, but sometimes you can have a brilliant game, and then other games you've lost from the very beginning because the scenario is set up. It's sort of like, we're not going to win this. But we have a laugh, don't we? We always come out.
We have a laugh.
Win, lose or draw, I go home laughing, and my wife knows I've had a good time. I don't come home with the ump because I've lost a game. Even the infamous Battle of Howe, I still went home laughing.
The Battle of Howe. If you haven't seen the Battle of Howe on my blog, look.
Is it a picture of Lee crying?
Nearly, yeah. It's the most amazing battle I've ever played in. It was just.
What was the period?
It's a 15mm Napoleonic. It was a what if after Waterloo, and the French carried on, and there is no way on this planet that the English should have won this game. No, shouldn't have won it. No way. But Lee's Francis dice roll was absolutely crap. That's all you can say. And John, he had 2 units of cavalry, and they were both militia, Hanoverian, and like cavalry like that. one of them actually in reality was so bad it was made to go and dig the latrines for the army because they were terrible. They were terrible.
Yeah.
But they were super kings in this game because whatever John did with them, he killed.
He's right. Dennis were brilliant. Mine were awful. And then my front lot of cavalry went into immediate collapse, retreated pell-mell through the units behind them, who also got charged.
The best bit was he beat your first 4 units in the front, and Francis was bringing on the reinforcements, coming on sideways. So after he beat Lee's first troops, he hit all the Carbineer Brigade in the flank.
Oh,
and he shouldn't have beaten because they were 2 Hussar units, and he just rolled them all up the whole flank.
It didn't help that I had just charged through them with my retreating troops, so everything was already disordered. Then he charged them.
Unbelievable! It was
2 divisions of cavalry wiped out with virtually no casualties on the other side. It was just like incredible.
And it was one of them. I was just standing there with my mouth open. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was hilarious.
It wasn't for us.
Lovely to hear. Lovely to hear. Right, guys, we'll take another break and we'll be back in a second for the features section. Welcome back to the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, features section. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through the Yorkshire Gamer Quiz. And this is a set of 20 questions, guaranteed to upset a number of people in the hobby, but I really don't care. And the yes or no's or one or the other. And please feel free to pause and slag off or discuss any of the options. And again, to the people out there, I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying anything. I'm just asking the question. That's all I'm doing.
So it's us taking the blame, right?
Don't get upset because I said something. I'm just asking the question. Right. So we'll do same question one after the other. So first question is the classic: go big or go home. And Ray, what are you going to go for?
It's going to have to be go big.
Good lad. Lee?
Yeah, go big.
Big Lee. Big Lee can't go home.
Yeah.
Big Lee's got to go big.
There's nothing quite beats a big battle, whether that's in 6mm or 28mm. Nothing beats a big battle.
No.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Question 2. Contrast paints, are they great or are they a gimmick? We'll go with Lee first.
I have used them, but I think they're... I haven't used them on any of my 28mm stuff, so I don't know. It's selected usage. They've got a place, I suppose, but I don't think I'll be converting the way I paint anytime soon.
Good lad. Ray, are you slapping it on with the contrast?
Well, I do own some contrast paints. I used a lot of them when I painted my 2mm figures because they work quite well. But I did buy the original Warlord Games ones, and they bleed like a bugger.
Ah, yes, I was aware of. Yeah.
So yes, I think they're okay, but I wouldn't use them on anything big at all. Yeah,
that's reasonable. Just so that everyone is aware out there, paint is available from shops and water is available for taps if you need to make it fucking dinner. Question 3. Winsor and Newton paintbrushes or Pro Art paintbrushes? Ray, are you a soft southerner who spends too much money on your paintbrushes?
No, I'm bloody not. No. I love Pro Art, to be honest with you.
Good man.
In the local shop in Gravesend, they sell loads of Pro Art brushes. I've only owned a couple of Winsor and Newtons, but I didn't buy them. I got one of them as a prize, and nice brushes. But
second prize, obviously.
No, first prize. I'm afraid it was. Yeah. But no, Pro Art for me. Thank you very much.
Oh, lovely, Lee. Your weapon of choice.
I did for years swear by Winsor and Newton Series 7s. but I have for the last decade or so gone to Pro Art. It has obviously it's got to be Sable, but you save so much money, and I'm not a competition painter, so why am I spending 30 quid on a brush with 2 hairs in it?
Yeah. Although I was the guy who owns Pro Art is a friend of mine now. He wasn't. I've been using them for years and years and years. But he showed me a 20-0.
Wow.
Paintbrush.
That one hair or something.
The fuck? It's amazing. If you go up to ABC Brushes at one of the shows and just ask to see the 20-0 brush, Peter will show
he comes out with a microscope.
What the fuck's that? In my usual diplomatic self, I was looking at the stall and I went, "What the fuck's that?" And he went, "Oh, 20-0, Ken." I said, "No." I very rarely go below 0. I've got a couple of really fine for if I'm doing lettering on a flag or something like that. But yeah, no, definitely not. Right, so we are question 4. I confuse myself when I've got 2 people on. Question 4. Lee, we're with you. 96 figures. Is that an army or a unit of pike?
Ooh.
It's controversial.
That is a beautiful looking unit of pike, but I'm not sure everyone else could do that. You can achieve it in 6mm, put it that way. I do like big units in 6mm, but 28mm, I'm not sure I can manage that. You are insane, clinically
insane. Ray.
Again, I think I'm with Lee there. I would love to have a 96 figure unit, but I can't justify spending that amount of money in 25mm. 2mm, yeah, you can have 150 men in it. And it costs you about 2 quid.
128 is my biggest pike block.
Is it? Good God.
I just did that just to annoy people. Where's your 96 figure pike block? Oh, that one there's 128. Fuck you. Always the best way to go. Question 5, Ray. 6x4 table, big game or small?
Again, it's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? And I've a lot of people, I'm going to say what a lot of people have previously said. For a small game using 6mm, 2mm figures, a 6x4 is a big game.
Yeah. But
for 28s, it's a very small game. So I'm in between with it. It depends what scale you're using. If you're using small scale figures, it can be a big game. 28s, it's a skirmish game.
Cool. Right. Sorry, Lee.
Yeah. I have to say, having been spoiled with Stuart's 14-foot by 6-foot table and seen it in its full glory, 6x4 is going to be small. I mean, I'm a 6mm player, so that's a nice big table for 6mm. But if you're going to play with 15 or 28mm models, you need a table as big as Stuart's, because 6x4 don't cut it.
That's what we like to hear. Question 6, sticking with Lee. Points-based army or historical order of battle for your games?
I've done both, and I do prefer the historical orders of battle if possible. I'm quite happy to have asymmetrical games and more realistic scenarios. Doesn't necessarily make it a fun game to play necessarily. I think I would go with historical. I'd lean more towards that than points, but I have used both.
Lovely. Ray?
The same for me. I'd go for historical order of battle any time over points. But like Lee said, sometimes historical battles are very one-sided.
I think it's the secret of a good game organizer is the ability to make something of those games.
Yes, definitely.
And it's something I thought about a lot with Mentana, because effectively it was a walkover for the Papal French troops. They struggled a bit when they got to the castle walls, and then the French went, "Oh, I got this new gun. Should we try it?" fired the Shaspos and everyone died.
Would this be your award-winning game?
Award-winning, yeah. Sorry. I didn't mention that. Oh dear me, it must be 20 minutes since I've said that. Yeah, so my award-winning game of Mentana, photographs available on the internet, signed photographs of me shaking the hand of the president of the London Wargames group are available for very reasonable price online. But yeah, I had to make changes to that to make it into a game, and the French Papal States still won 7 out of the 9 games that we played.
But
so,
you had a better game out of it, though.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the secret. That's the secret.
Definitely.
So we are on to Ray. Mixing paints, wet palette or an old bit of MDF?
I've never had a wet palette. I never want a wet palette, but I don't use MDF. What I use is one of these.
Oh,
which is a Pringle lid.
Pringle lid.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, that's what I use. We have many packets of Pringles or boxes of Pringles in the shed, and I nick or fight Posty to nick all the lids, and that's what I squirt all my paint in.
That is a good idea. I like that because you want something that's not too porous, but something that's not going to grow mould.
That's it. Yeah.
I like that.
Good.
I like that. Lee, what's your paint mixing fix?
I do have a wet palette, but I don't use it anymore. I tried it out for a while, and I didn't really think it made a blown bit of difference to my style of painting, so I put it away. Like Ray, I'm quite happy to squirt paint into a Pringles lid. But actually, my mixing palette, if you like, of choice is a porcelain artist palette because you can put it in warm water and all the paint comes off and it's brand new. My daughter bought me one for my birthday a few years ago, and it's just a little square palette with little pots in. Fantastic. Like I say, put it in hot water, all the paint comes off. Fantastic. Can't beat it.
They are really good. They are really good, I have to say. I do have one kicking around, but I keep losing it. So I just stick with the old bit of MDF, which is now about 6 mil thicker than it was when I first started using it. But there we go. So Lee, when you're undercoating figures, are you black or white?
Black or brown at the moment.
Ooh.
I tend to use brown on my 6 mil models.
Yeah.
I don't know why it works. I can't remember who recommended that to me. It might have been Tamsin, Wargame Girl. She said, try brown, and I tried it, and I thought, God, this is brilliant. It works really well on 6 mil models. But I've used black on all of the 1812 stuff, and then a dry brush of white, just so I can see the detail, and then I paint over that.
Oh, cool. Right.
I use predominantly black, but I've been using a lot of grey as well. Not white. I just put a little bit of white in with the paint. Basically doing what Lee does, but because when it's black, I can't bloody see the detail on the figure.
You know, have you got light bulbs down where you live in the south?
We do have light bulbs down in south. It's these bloody things, these eyes, these terrible eyes of mine. I mean, I use the Vallejo undercoat, but it's really for the sprayy kind of things, whatever they're called. I can't remember.
The airbrush paint, isn't it?
Airbrush, yeah. But it's very shiny at the end. So I've been banging a little bit of grey in that just to darken it down, just so I can get that little bit of detail out of the figures.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's very good. Question 9, staying with Ray. The first regionally biased question. The second regional biased question, actually, because Pro Art one's very regionally biased. And this is hot drink, Yorkshire tea, or dirty bookie coffee?
Well, you'll be very surprised that I absolutely detest coffee.
Hey!
I hate the horrible smell, the taste, yuck. So I drink either Yorkshire tea or Tetley tea.
Tetley. Yorkshire tea floor sweepings.
That's it. Yeah. Well, either one of them, and I'm happy.
Yorkshire tea for those who can't afford the gas bill. Totally.
That's it.
Lee, what do you go for, mate?
As usual, I'm going to be on the fence. I am a black coffee drinker up to about lunchtime. The blacker and the thicker, the better, honestly. My coffee is so unhealthy. 3 or 4 spoons of coffee in a mug. No milk, no sugar. Fantastic. The bitter, the better, just like my soul. But then in the afternoon, I do like hot, sweet Yorkshire tea.
Oh, good lad, good lad. So you're a bit like a hot drink vampire then. You have one during one part of the day and another during another part of the day. But you get some Yorkshire tea in you, so well done, well done. So question 10, halfway through. We are with Lee, and it's Wargames units. As long as it's historically accurate, do you like your figures tightly packed or socially distanced?
When I do my 6mm units, I do like them tightly packed.
You don't have a lot of choice of 6mm, do you? You can't. You haven't got a lot of choice of 6mm, have you? Because they give them to you already in a line.
Yeah, but also I do tend to. One of the major advantages of going 6mm is you can have a unit that looks like a unit. There's a lot of figures on a base, and you know,
you can do that in 28mm, Lee.
Only for rich people like you.
Oh dear me. Ray, are you close together or far apart?
Yeah, tightly packed. I think it just looks more the part, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. As you guys don't really club game, I can see where this one's going to go. So Ray, 2-hour club game or weekend monster game?
Weekend monster, of course.
Yeah, it's the only way to game.
Lee? Yeah, it's weekend monster game. When we play in the Shed of War, we'll get up there at 10 and we can play till 6 o'clock. We perhaps don't do the late nights the group used to do, but you know, a good 8 or 9 hours gaming is a good day.
That's what I like to see. That's what I like to see. So that leaves you first up for the avocado question, Lee. Avocado, is it just posh mushy peas?
I've never eaten an avocado in my life, but I do love mushy peas.
Good lad. Give you a bonus point for that. Ray?
I love mushy peas. I will admit I really love mushy peas. Avocado, I don't mind avocado if it's on some Mexican food, you know, a bit of guacamole type thing. But I don't want guacamole on toast with eggs and all that kind of stuff. That's not me.
No,
it's far too posh. Far too posh.
Avocado, you have to mix it with something else, don't you, to make it edible?
Yeah, because it tastes of nothing.
Yeah, whereas mushy peas. Ooh.
Yeah, mushy peas, nice.
Big spoonful of mushy peas. Ooh,
make me hungry.
Question 13, the universal question is: what are you two going to break the run? Let's see. Ray, round dice, spherical dice. Are they allowed on your table or are they banned?
Throw them in the bin now.
Wait.
No way. My dice rolling's bad enough without having a round dice and then a fight over what the bloody number is. You know?
I can't remember who it was. Somebody came up to me at Salute and he said, "There's a guy here selling dice," and I've just been up to him and asked him if he sells any round dice, and he said, "No, I don't," and he sounded really, really upset, like loads of people have been up and asked him during the day. So either he listens and he gets the joke, or he's thinking, "Fucking hell, I need to buy millions of round dice."
The other thing is, the way we roll dice in the Shed of War, no round dice would ever stay on the table. I mean, we have trouble keeping regular dice on the table, don't we? So
I'll just show this to.
Oh my
God! I've got one. Oops, I've dropped it. Bloody dropped it. Dropped it. Ian Fraser, I know he listens. He brought it to me a couple of 3 years ago. Bless him. But I keep it in there, locked away in a box, so it doesn't escape. It's still rolling now. I can hear it. It's still not decided what number it's ended up on. Oh dear me! Right. Anyway, we're doing very well. Question 14. Ray, sorry, Lee. I think we were with you. War games measurements. Do you have glorious imperial feet and inches, or that dreadful French money centimeters? What would you prefer?
I I don't know why, but I do stick with inches. I mean, I've grown up with imperial, so everything else is, but with centimeters and so on. But war games, it just doesn't feel right in anything other than inches.
Brilliant, brilliant. Ray?
The same for me. You know, I grew up in the 70s at school. You're learning about centimeters and millimeters. But when I first started to work, I was doing bricklaying, and everything was, they used imperial measurements still. So if somebody says to me, "What's 6 centimeters look like?" I couldn't tell you. Not a clue. Not a clue. But I can tell you what 6 inches is.
It's interesting because
I was waiting for one of you to get that.
Oh dear me. It's just, that's after the moist comments. It's
that's
getting
it.
worse and worse and worse.
Drag it down to the gutter. Drag it down to the gutter. Why not?
But as I've said before on the show, name me a country that uses centimeters that's put a man on the moon.
True. It is true.
No, it's not happened yet. Well, that we know, it's put a man on the moon. What did they use in Russia? There's a question for you. For listeners, what set of measurements do they use in Russia? I honestly don't know.
Not a clue.
Interesting. Right. Someone will tell us. Question 15, 3/4 of the way through. And I think, Ray, we're with you. Do you like a good table and a set of rules, like a casualty table or an armour penetration table? Or you prefer dice to do the work?
I like a bit of both, to be honest. I'm old school in like the tables, because you know a lot of the games we used to play had tables in it all the time, but it does kind of bog down your game, I think. And as the rejects are all getting older, we want a simplified set of rules, and tables are out the window. You know, it's down to, right, you know, you got a +1 on your dice there, another dice there, you know, and it's just easier that way. So I'm probably gonna have to go with ditching the tables, to be honest.
Ditch the tables. Lee?
I'm a big fan of quick reference sheets, and if you can get a table on a quick reference sheet, I haven't got a problem with that. But yeah, I'm the same as Ray. I do like simpler rules as I get older. You know, there's a lot of fine detail in some rule sets that can be abstracted down to one dice roll, you know, and it still works.
It's definitely a trend within the hobby. Kind of a question outside of the quiz for you guys. I'm getting to the stage now where I think it's gone too far. We need to come back. I love Dave Brown's sets of rules, but I didn't really enjoy General GDA 2. It's starting to get too abstract for me, whereas earlier on the abstractions weren't as noticeable. Now it's like, well, I'm not sure about this. Are you just happy that everything gets simpler, or are you going to reach a stage where you go, no, line in the sand?
I think sometimes you've got to have a table. You've got to have something in there as not a chance. You know, it's you've got to read off that and say, right, okay. I like the simplified stuff. Like I said earlier on, and as Lee said, it kind of works for our gameplay. But I think there's always room for a table of some sort to make the game more, not necessarily realistic, but more playable. Well, that's my take anyway. I don't know what you think, Lee.
But this is where the quick reference sheets come in. I will often print out quick reference sheets for the players if I bring a game to the shed, because they can do some of the bloody work then. But if you can fit it on a couple of sides of A4, then that's fine. You know, so I ain't got a problem with a table on that.
There's a topic for you. Are Wargames rules becoming too simple? But I think that there is a link between familiarity and playability. So what might appear a complex set of rules when you first read it, if you've played it for 20 years, then it isn't complicated because, I've got friends who played in the Grand Manor, played it all their lives. And, they have a number of figures against a factor on a casualty table. And if you say 36 figures on a 2, they'll know how many casualties it is without even looking at the table. So that's another factor.
I think the fact that we play such a wide variety of games, that's why one of the reasons as a group we prefer simpler rules, because we might be playing something completely different in 2 weeks' time when we get down the shed. And if we were playing the same sets of rules over and again, we might want something more complicated because we'd all have a chance to actually learn the rules before we turn up for a game. Whereas most of the time, we're halfway through the game, we're going, how does that work?
What are we playing? Can anybody know?
Lose on technicality and go, I didn't know they worked like that. I told you that at the beginning, he says.
Oh dear. Right, we're on the back leg now. So question 16, I've got no idea whose turn it is, so I'll just go with Lee. 28 mil is king, yes or no?
No, I'm a 6 mil player. I thoroughly enjoyed the 28 mil, the Retreat from Moscow project. I have enjoyed painting them, but the sheer cost and the storage, I'm looking at the boxes and I have no clue where I'm going to put them. So yeah, 6 mil is king for me, I'm afraid.
6 mil is king. Ray?
Well, I love 15 mil. 15 mil was one of my favourite ones. I haven't done any 15 mil for quite some time, but I think nothing looks better than a 28 mil figure. So, with my head bowed, I will say 28 mil is king.
28 mil is king.
Shut up, you.
Question 17. Unpainted miniatures allowed on the table, Ray? Yes or no?
No, definitely not. If you're a 6-year-old kid who's just brought his little army to the game, then fair enough. But if Lee come along with, I'm putting these figures on the table, they got no paint, get out. You ain't even playing. Get out.
Lee?
Well, funnily enough, I did a topic of one of my videos on this very topic not so long ago. I definitely. I get it if maybe you've got one unit or something like that, but and like you say, someone starting out, I certainly wouldn't want to gatekeep and say you can't play because that figure ain't painted. But I have got some serious PTSD from my early days of wargaming, being thrashed by completely unpainted armies, and I would turn up, like I say, first game war games I played with Warhammer Fantasy Battle, I would turn up with a fully painted army, and the guy opposite me, great friend, brilliant wargamer, he'd turn up, it was all plastic, all metal, completely unpainted, and he would trounce me game after game, and it was sort of like I had serious PTSD. I don't like seeing it. And I've even seen unpainted miniatures at the occasional show, and that just makes me want to twitch. I am I'm normally a fairly calm person, but I'm very close to table flipping at that point.
Is that your break point, Lee? That's your fix that.
I get flashbacks. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, understandable. Right, so Ray, you've got this one wrong. So Lee, Bradford City or Leeds United?
What are we talking about?
Football.
Football. Well, what's that? I have no interest in football at all.
Oh dear. So how come you ended up?
I will go with Bradford City on the grounds that Leeds nearly crashed the car. Right, because we came back from Partisan one day and they were listening to the radio, and Ray was driving and he was screaming his lungs off at the radio, and the car was going all over the place.
Oh
No,
dear
I
me.
have zero interest in football.
No. Do you, Ray? I've got to ask you what was your kind of introduction to Leeds? Then did you used to randomly kick people in the school playground
Oh,
if it was the one closest to you?
it's a very sweet little story, actually.
Yeah,
And my dad's a Tottenham supporter,
yeah.
and you got to support Tottenham. You got to support Tottenham. But in 1972, my brother was born, and Mum and Dad called him Lee. So my little brother Lee became there's a football team called Leeds. I'll support them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I support Leeds, because of my little brother.
Brilliant. So it's not the fighting and the dirty tactics and
no, unfortunately,
all that sort of
it
stuff.
should be. You know, I could have picked myself up then and said that, couldn't I? But
yeah,
no,
dirty.
I'm afraid it's my little baby brother.
Oh, fantastic! That's a nice story, actually. That really is. Right. So, but you're still wrong. Question 19 is a lot easier, and that is Yorkshire or the other place over the hill, Ray?
Well, being as I'm a Leeds supporter, it's got to be Yorkshire.
Good lad. Good lad. Lee?
Yeah, beautiful part of the country. Can't fault it. I've had a couple of holidays in Yorkshire, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So, hands down.
Excellent. Another fantastic advertisement for Mordor next door. Oh dear. I used to work along the border with Lancashire, and you could go up on the top of the Dales on the evening and see the big eye just above Burnley. Endell witches and all that, yeah. Ah, dear me. Right, final question. This is one that will always cause issues. Games Workshop, are they the work of the devil? Lee?
I won't say work of the devil, but I because when I first got into gaming, we would buy a lot of stuff from Games Workshop, and as I mentioned earlier, we got into Adeptus Titanicus and Warhammer Epic and all that sort of thing. We used to go and visit those shops on a regular basis. But you know what, I as I've got older and I've learned more about their marketing techniques, Evil Genius, perhaps I would put that there.
Evil Genius, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
But on the other hand, you know, a lot of players, there are a lot of players that come into historicals because they played Warhammer 40,000 or whatever, before. So you can't knock them too much if they're getting people to play war games. Maybe we can tempt some of them over to historicals. Yeah,
onto the light side.
Yeah.
Ray, what's your GW opinion? He's always thinking.
Yeah, I think they are the devil. I think they are the devil.
Good lad.
But they do, as Lee said, they do introduce kids to gaming, and hopefully some do come away from the dark side, over to the light, and play historicals one day. But they're very clever people, very clever.
They are, I have a single share in Games Workshop, and it's my best performing shares. It's just unbelievable how I don't buy another one. I might tip it over. Hard work, this investing for your pension with one GW share. They don't send me any free figures.
Do you want any of their free figures?
No. I definitely don't. I don't think nobody ever sends me any free figures because I do a review and I go, well, this was a bit shit actually. And then, so I have to buy my own, which is fine. I can live with that. So congratulations, gentlemen. Lovely run through the quiz there. And bragging rights go to Lee with 85%, and Ray shortly behind with a Bradford City length of 5 points to 80. So if you only supported the right football team, it would have been a draw.
If only.
If only. If only your brother had been called Brad.
Yeah, it'd been a different story, wouldn't it?
Different story.
Yeah.
Different story.
Or if you'd managed to keep between the white lines on that drive back from Partisan, I would have gone with these.
Well, yeah, I do apologise.
Oh dear, can't argue with that. So we move on then to Wargames Room 101, and this is where our guests are allowed to have a little couple of minutes rant, if they like, untimed, about something that really drives them nuts within the Wargames hobby. And we've had lots over the course of the show, but it's always good to hear that one thing that gets a wargamer really going, what the fuck is going on? And I always like to hear from different people on what they've got. So let's go with Lee. Let's go with yours first, mate. What's your entry?
Well,
what do you hate
you've already heard that I don't like unpainted miniatures, but actually the thing that really bugs me time and time again is poorly labelled display games at shows. Oh, man. I mean, obviously, me and Ray talked about this ourselves because, obviously we go there, we've got our camera in hand, we want photographs to put on our blog, or in my case, I want to put them into a YouTube video. And then I'm sitting there afterwards going like, what the heck was that game? You only got to look at Salute, and we'll come back to this later. What was it, 110 games? I can't possibly remember them all. So if they just need, because if I go around and there's a display, a little sign saying what the game is and who's running it, I'll take a photograph of that, and then so I've got a reference. Sometimes you'll go to a show and everyone's got really good displays, good pamphlets or leaflets or anything. That's not essential, but that's really nice. But when you get to a game and there's absolutely no signage whatsoever, and they're not even wearing club t-shirts or something, you're like, who the hell are you? And usually, not always, but usually they're the sort of group where everyone's got their backs to you anyway. So, and even if I did talk to them and ask them about who they were, I ain't going to bloody remember when I've done 111 other tables, So yeah, no, poorly labelled. It only needs to be simple. The name of the club, the name of the game, and perhaps the models and what set of rules you're using. Extra information can include some contact details for your club or whatever it might be. I really like a good show leaflet. If someone's putting an effort in to do a nice pamphlet to do with their game, that's fantastic. But just the basic information, name of the club, name of the game, for crying out loud.
In fact, you did a video on it, didn't you?
Yeah.
And Lee came up to my table at Partisan, or I can't remember which show it was, and I fucking rammed a fucking leaflet in his hand. I fucking take it.
I've had a couple of people do that. I've come round and taken photographs, and they've rushed up with a leaflet. No, I've done one.
You're intimidating people, Lee.
Damn right.
Making us
no
worried.
No excuse for it. Right on a piece of paper. It doesn't even need to be printed out. Right. Just let us know who's doing it.
I got to the point at Salute where I had one left. They normally last us like an entire year, but I think maybe because it was so unusual and people really didn't. Fucking a number of people said, "Is that the Mexican Revolution on your award-winning game?"
7.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. I like that. Ray, what gets your goat?
Well, me and Lee had a chat the other day about this, and the one that annoyed us both was the one he said. So I've had to think of something else. I've had to think of something else. Yeah. I've got one, but we've actually briefly spoke about it earlier on, which was the scale creep.
Yes, that is a good one.
In mainly 25s, in the other scales as well, but there can be a centimetre difference in 28mm figures. 25, 28, what scale are they? 32s? God knows. And it means you've got to have an entire company's figures in one unit. You can't mix and match. If you're doing skirmish like we're doing with the retreat from Moscow, you can pick any figure you want and put that figure into a unit. But it's very difficult when the figures are either dwarves or giants.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a
Especially
lot
when
of,
you're not playing with dwarves and giants.
and especially when you're not playing with dwarves. Yeah, I mean, I've got a large collection of Dixon minis.
Oh yes,
Lovely,
Dixon.
lovely figures, but they are tiny compared to other figures, and so it means I've got to ponce around. It means I've got to like double base figures. You know, put a base on top of a base. You know, again, like we said, I see it. Nobody else sees it. You know, I know the lads don't see it in the shed, but I'm looking at it thinking, "Oh, you bastard! That's really annoying me."
But it becomes acceptable over time, doesn't it? Because 15mm, if you remember, became 18mm with AB, and 25mm that we were all familiar with has now become 28mm.
Yeah.
But those keep growing as well. 28mm, some people talk about heroic 28s, which are 32s, and it's
I mean, if you're using one company's figures and that's all you're using, doesn't matter. But you know, unfortunately, there aren't many companies out there who do the whole range of figures that you might want.
Yes.
And that's always happened with every period I've done. So you have to mix stuff, you know, and I know lots of people don't like to mix figures in the same unit from different companies, but sod it, I'll do it. And like I said, none of the rejects notice, you know, that they're there. They're just looking at counters, basically, because that's all they are, is they're just posh counters. You know, it breaks the heart saying that, because I've just spent 40 quid on them and 3 weeks painting the buggers up. But they are just counters.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's just you've just triggered one for me there that I've not spoken about. I don't think I have. That incomplete figure ranges. That drives me fucking mad. Absolutely mad. Gripping Beast, I'm talking to you now. I'm singling Gripping Beast out for the Woodbine design figures. The World War One stuff, I've got loads of their World War One stuff, Mesopotamia, etc. They must be 15, 18 years old now.
Yeah, at
and they
least.
still haven't brought the cavalry out. Incomplete ranges.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Shocking. Anyway, that's very good. Thank you very much for that. I'm glad to see that you're both smiling and you are both more relaxed about your hobby. Therapy on the Yorkshire Gamer podcast is free.
It's free, yeah. Look at that.
It's free. So we'll just finish off with the Desert Island War Game. These are 3 bits of stuff you can take to a desert island, a bit like the show on Radio 2, but we're taking war game stuff rather than records. So Lee, a desert island game. What would be the one game from your entire life that you would like to take with you?
I'm actually going to go with The Men Who Would Be Kings by Daniel Mersey. I've used that set of rules for a couple of different periods, and I just find them highly adaptable, very simple, which I like. And I love his Mr. Babbage solo play or automated play rules in the back. I just think they're very sensible. I've used them in lots of different other games. Just a really nice little set of rules, not overly complicated, very adaptable, and there's lots of really good rule sets out there, and I'm sure there's some proper historical wargaming purists who are hanging their head and going, what is he talking about? But actually, I've got a soft spot for that set of rules because I've used them several times. So
it's one of those sets of rules that, you know, I haven't touched with a barge pole for obvious reasons because they're relatively small scale. But I have to say that I've not had anyone say a bad word against them. They're one of those sets of rules that seem to be, as you say, relatively simple, easy to play, fun. Lots of people enjoy them when they give them a go. So I'm not going to knock them for that reason at all. It's just one I haven't played.
I've used them for my French Foreign Legion game, the award-winning game.
Award-winning game? Oh. The podcast of award-winning games.
15mm figures works perfect for that. But I've also used them with me 6mm Anglo-Zulu Ward stuff with a bit of adaptation. So, like I say, they're they're simple and they're easy to tinker with, and I just really like them. I just like the way the rule set was written.
No, good. Ray, your Desert Island Wargame, mate.
I would go with Donnybrook.
Ooh,
I've painted a hell of a lot of Donnybrook figures.
I've seen them.
Yes, you've seen them. I've bored people to tears with my floppy hats many a time on the Analogue Hobbies Challenge. A very simple set of rules. Obviously a skirmish set, or a semi-skirmish set, I like to call them. They work really well, and I've got loads of figures for them because, with Barry Hilton's other stuff, the 15mm stuff I've got, that's my big games. I decided to get some 25s to do some skirmish, and I just went mental on it. I've got the Scots, I've got the Irish, I've got King Philip's War in America. I've got pirates. I've not played with them yet, but I originally started with Tangier. That was going to be the one and only period I was going to do for it.
It went wrong.
It went wrong. It went pear shaped very, very quickly. But yeah, that was, and I've used for the Moors there. I've used my El Cid figures, the Reet Conquista, a lot of their stuff. But it's just a good fun. It's quite a short game, but it's just a great period and a great set of rules.
Awesome. Lee, what would your book be?
There's a history book, The Basque Raid, the Long-Range Desert Group's Most Daring Exploit in World War II by Brendan O'Carroll. I should say Brendan O'Carroll, the historian, not the comedian.
I was going to say, isn't he that Black Arrow? It was Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Yeah, no, it's not him. It's just a cracking book. It's about the LRDG's part in a larger operation, and they were going to attack this Italian airfield hundreds of miles behind the enemy lines. And despite the fact that the Italians knew they were coming, they had reconnaissance and all the rest, they ripped through the place. They drove through the centre of town, firing off hundreds and hundreds of shells, shot up every aeroplane on the battlefield, on the airfield, blew everything up, and then buggered off back into the night. I mean, and then the story of their escape was just fantastic as well, because a load of men ended up walking most of the way back in the desert, and there was all sorts of daring escapes. It's just a proper boys' own adventure type book, but it's all very well researched. This particular book, it interviewed most of the survivors, because a lot of them are New Zealanders and so on. They're just fantastic. And then even better, a lot of the men that took part, quite illicitly, brought cameras with them, so there was photographs of the vehicles on their way to the thing, and then lots of aerial photographs of the follow-up, really good maps. So that was another game that I ran, another award-winning game.
Full of them.
Now I did a 6mm Basque Raid game at Broadside. I can't remember, and that was quite a few years ago now.
Oh, it's got
but it was almost entirely based on the contents of this book, because it was just brilliant. And it's one of those history books that I can pick up and read any time, because it's just it's hard to get hold of. That's the only problem. I think it's by Nagayo Press from 2005. So if you can find a copy online, it's well worth it. It's a really fun read, and like I say, proper boys' own adventure type story. You're reading it and you're going, "You did what? You're mad!" And they got away with it. Fantastic.
I love those sorts of stories. They're absolutely fantastic. So Ray, what would you go for, mate?
Well, I've gone for, the choice is too long, really, but I've gone for one of my dad's old books that I used to read all the time, and it's one of the Blandford books, Military Flags of the World, 1619 to 1900. I bloody love that book. I've read it cover to cover, I don't know how many times, and I love a flag. I've always, that was one of my things at school. I'd do reports and stuff and topics on flags of the world. So, I don't know why, but I just love a flag, and that's got some crackers in it. It really has. It's got some rubbish in it as well, I'm afraid. But yeah, and that's just a book I've like I said, I've read so many times, cover to cover. Drawn most of the flags, when I was a kid, and actually drawn some of the flags to put on some of my units not so long ago as well.
I love a book with history. I always talk about my Uniform of Waterloo one that's got all my notes in it from building the armies and underlined on the order of battle when I painted them and stuff like that. And you just can't buy that sort of
No,
history with the book.
that book is it. I've probably read that when I was about 6, or probably not read it, just probably looks at the pictures. But that's part of my life. That book, which is ridiculous, really, but it is a book on flags, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, exactly. So that just leaves us with the War Games unit then, Lee. Are you going to take one of your own? Or are you going to steal one from somebody else?
Well, I was briefly considering a science fiction unit from way back when my group were playing Warhammer Epic, and my mate painted a Space Marine army in turquoise, and they became known as the Turquoise Death. They were awful, but they became legendary because they were so awfully painted. But no, I'm not going to pick those. Actually, I'm going to pick Hannibal's Numidian Cavalry.
Nice.
Because I'm amazed by them. Probably the best light cavalry of all time, highly disciplined, a vital part of Hannibal's army. Everyone knows about his elephants, but actually he lost most of his elephants early on, didn't he? And in the crossing of the Alps. But it was his cavalry that really made the difference. And when they finally switched sides, that was the time when he lost at the Zama. So, we ran a game in the shed. I ran the Battle of Trebia, where he used his Numidian cavalry to lure the Romans out of their camp before breakfast. And the Romans should have known better. But they were so disciplined, they drew them out, and they drew them across this river. And of course, all the horses were fine, but the Romans were up to their chest in freezing cold water. They hadn't had breakfast, and then they walked straight uphill into Hannibal's trap. And he couldn't have done any of that without his Numidian light cavalry. So they are probably my favourite. I wouldn't say unit, but they're my favourite group of troops. I think they stand out for me in the ancient world. So,
quality. Ray?
Well, I've thought long and hard about this, and I was speaking to the guys about it at one of our last painting chats, and it's probably I'm going to choose the 7 Years' War 9th Regiment of Foot, which was the first unit I ever painted properly.
Oh yeah. Fantastic.
When I said earlier on about the Age of Reason campaign that we all started back when the Rejects first started, when we wasn't even called the Rejects, we was just a group of guys, and Richard he'd got the Prussians, and I'd bought the British, and I said you got to teach me how to do this, because I haven't done this. I think the last time I did it I was about 8. So I went round his house, and we painted the 9th Regiment of Foot in about 2 hours. And so
speed paints before they were invented.
Yeah, well, there's only 12 figures in the unit, 15 mil. So, but yeah, that's got to be my one. That's my proper start to the hobby unit. That one. And it's the only regiment I had in the English Army with a Union flag, because all the others I used the facing colour flags. And Richard actually painted the flag rather than me. But,
brilliant! Nice bit of history with that one. Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks very much for that, guys. Real fun bit of quizzing there, and we'll just take another break, and then we're going to be back, and we're going to chat about Salute. Lovely. Well, we've had a fantastic chat so far this evening on all things general wargaming, and it's been lovely to catch up and learn a little bit more about the guys. But one thing we said we were going to do on this show when I met up with Lee and Ray down at Salute in London was kind of have a little bit of a discussion about that show and about shows in general. And there's been lots of stuff out there already, video reviews of various award-winning games at the etc. But I thought I think we can give it a little bit more space and a little bit more time to talk about stuff, a little bit more time to reflect maybe on the day. So for those who don't know, the people from all over the world listen to this show. Really, if you're in the Philippines and you're listening to this, you need to get something else to do. You really do. But you're welcome. You're welcome. Wherever you're listening, you're welcome. And the 4 people who listen every month in Ukraine, I'm behind you guys. So the show itself is I don't think there's any doubt, it's the biggest show in Wargames Show in the UK. It takes place over one day in London. It's been through various venues, I'm sure we'll talk about during the course of the day. It certainly developed over the years, and many of the reports I've seen have said that this was probably the best ever. So I know probably Phil Andrews and Martin Gain will be listening to this. So I'm going to take the mickey out of it, mate. And I'm going to say that it was rubbish. Where's my trophy?
What trophy, Ken?
The award-winning game. Oh, now you mention it. There was some mix-up with the trophies, bless them, and they couldn't present them on the day, so they're in the post. So I might be northern. I might be northern, but I'm not bloody daft. Oh dear me. So, guys, you live closer to Salute than I do. So, what's your kind of history with the show then, Ray? Have you been going every year forever, or?
Yeah, I don't know when the first one I went to was, to be perfectly honest, but it must have been late 80s, early 90s. And it was at Kensington Town Hall.
Yeah.
And all the lads, we got the train up there, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? Because you got into this place, and it was like a crowded pub on a Saturday night.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
You could not move. You had to push past people and really, really struggle to get from, to walk 2 foot. To be honest with you, you'd have some smelly armpit shoved in your face, smacked in the chops with someone's backpack, run over by someone's suitcase that they're trying to pull behind with their life in the back. But yeah, that was my first Wargame show I went to at Kensington, and I remember on the train back, us all, because we had our Salute bag that you were given as you go in, carry a bag, and I hid mine under my coat when we was at the train station because next to us there were these dweeby, nerdy, science fiction, gamey bods who were. I just looked at them and very probably quite wrongly looked down my nose at them, and I thought, I can't be standing here with the same bag as them, so I hid it in my coat.
Yeah. Space weirdos.
Yeah, some of these, fantasy, fairy, whatever they are, kind of guys.
Yeah. Lee, when did you first start the Salute bug?
My first Salute was 2004. And I just remember being blown away because I'd never been to that was my first. I'd been to role-playing conventions where they might have the occasional table, but that was my first proper war game show. And as I mentioned earlier, I had done some war gaming with my mates, but then a long period where they didn't want a war game and I didn't have a group to go to, and so I was still painting miniatures for D&D and stuff. And I went to this show thinking I might buy some figures for D&D, and then there's just tables and tables and tables, and I was absolutely blown away by it. The level of DL. Just amazing tables. I just remember just being completely blown away by it. And I think I've attended most of them since, with one or two exceptions, like when it's clashed with the school holidays or something like that. And when you've got kids, you don't get to turn around to your wife and say, I'm not going on our main holiday for the year, darling, because I'm going to Salute, because that would leave stab holes in your body. I think I've missed maybe 3 ever since then, but I try and go every year because it's literally 15 minutes from where I live.
I used to take my family on holiday to Scotland the weekend of Claymore, and it got noticed very quickly.
Brave man, brave man. Well, I have convinced my wife to come with me to Sheffield in July. That happens to be the weekend of Joy of Six. So
excellent.
But I have got a depositor in a shopping centre with a credit card, so that could be a very expensive weekend all round.
You'll be fine. It's Sheffield. It's cheap as chips there. Cheap as chips. You'll be able to get anything there for now. And it's grown over the years, and we're now in this EdXL centre just outside London, on the east side of London. What did you feel like with the build up this time? I thought there was more of a buzz about it this year, and the advertising was better and more outreach. Yeah,
saw more on Facebook and stuff like that coming up, and we and the panels in particular, they were promoting that. We've seen a lot of that coming up, because that's a feature I really like about them. It's only been the last few years they've done panels, isn't it? And that's quite usually interesting. There's usually at least one panel. They have the year I went and saw you in your panel. I went and watched the one with Alex in this year. So I do, and that's quite nice. I mean, aside from anything else, it gives old parts like me with dodgy knees half an hour to sit down and rest my knees. But that's quite a thing. So they were doing a lot of that preamble to that, saying who's going to be on the panels and that. So that it did feel like there was a lot more discussion about what's going to go on at the show before the show. I think they did a good job there of pushing that information out on social media, which is where we saw it.
Do you think, Ray, that it's easier now to get the message out if you're prepared to do it? That is, because you're not reliant on those adverts in the magazines every month.
I mean, there are so many different social media platforms now, and they seem to have worked it really well. I mean, I don't use them all. I only use a couple myself, but it was definitely noticeable that there was something going on called Salute. And if I noticed it, then plenty of other wargamers must have done, and then other people who aren't wargamers must have done, and may have took the trip down there to have a nose about and see what all this ruckus was about.
I mean, I guess you guys did. You have press passes?
Afraid we did. Yes.
So
we're tight.
Yeah.
Tight. Yeah.
It's good this year because this is the first time I've had a press pass and I've actually got one of the figures.
Oh, right.
Because all the other times I've missed out on a figure.
But I think it was it 17.50, 15 quid, 17.50? I can't remember what the entrance price was because I didn't pay to get in either.
I didn't pay. No, to be honest, I don't know. I didn't look because I have a press pass.
And a few people have said, "Oh, that's way too much." I think anyone who's had any involvement whatsoever in organising an event where you pay for the hall will realise that size of space in London is not cheap.
I hate to think how much that hall cost to hire out. I absolutely.
Yeah.
I would get it wrong by quite a lot. I would have thought.
Quite a lot.
And not only that, I think that everything's extra, isn't it? Because we was chatting to one of the guys, the organisers, afterwards, and we was complimenting them on having all the extra tables and chairs around the edges, because I thought that was a brilliant move. And he said, we had to pay for that. So you can imagine it's like your EasyJet flight, and you get your seat, and everything else is extra.
Yeah. I think it's an important thing, and I do have to praise the South London Warlords for this. Is they do think about stuff, and this year they gave free parking to one car from each club that brought a game, and I thought that was fantastic because I'm happy to come down. I'm not complaining here, but it's cost me 200-mile petrol one way, 200-mile petrol the other way, a night in a hotel, food, beer, because I had to buy beer on the night before. I was drawn into a pub, and I'll come to that in a minute. There's a story there as well. But just to have them go, right, there's a free car parking space for you at the venue, I think is a wonderful thing to do, and it should encourage more people to bring bigger games there as well.
It should be,
And that's a cost to them, and they've got to cover that, and they're already paying lots of money out. So if they can do that through, a very small percentage of the ticket price, I think that's a positive thing. And I don't know whether some of the people who come on the panels get paid. I don't know. So
I mean, what I would say,
there's
though,
lots
is I
of
think
costs.
you've got to think of it in terms of how does it compare against other events at Excel. And I've been to other events. I'm going to Comic-Con next month, and Excel Salute is pretty reasonably priced compared to some of these other events at Excel. You can't compare it against other wargaming shows because it's in a class of its own. So yes, it is a lot more expensive than going to, say, Partisan or Warfare or wherever. But that's because Excel is literally the only venue even remotely big enough to cope with that show.
It's not that much more expensive, is it really? £18, £20 just to get in. People have got to realise you are in London. It's going to cost more because you're in London. And that hall, I don't know how big that hall is, but it's
huge.
You can fit an aeroplane in there, can't you? It's absolutely gigantic, and they've got to make money. They're not there for they're not going to pay for it all themselves, are they? They need the public to pay. And you just looked at the crowds queuing up to get in. I don't think £18.50 or £20, whatever it was, bothered any of them people.
No.
What was it? Nearly 7,500 people, I think they said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I mean, at one point, they were worried that they would reach capacity.
Yeah.
So it was that good. I'd like to.
Well, there was
I'd like to know.
I realised how busy it was. There's a set of conference rooms on a floor above, and there's a walkway that overlooks the hall. So if you look over to the side of the hall, you can see a row of windows halfway up the wall. And I went up there because there's some nice, quiet toilets up there, and I could go in there and freshen up. And I come out and I looked out the window and I looked down at the hall, and it was absolutely jam packed. And I couldn't believe how busy it looked, particularly compared to what year was it? We went just after the pandemic. Was it 21?
Yeah.
When it was dead, and we were thinking
we thought it was the end, didn't we? We thought it was the end of Salute at that show because it was really nobody there. Lots of the traders hadn't turned up. Lots of the games hadn't turned up. So we thought that was it, the end.
Yeah,
but
I think full praise to the South London Warlords, and I'm going to slag you off with something else later on. I'm just building you up. The job they've done turning it round from that to what we went to is remarkable, and they should be praised for that.
No, definitely.
Because I didn't go to that COVID one. My history with Salute has been quite spotty. I did the one you spoke about, Kensington Town Hall, both as a punter and as a trader. I used to work for a company called Hallmark Figures. Then I did Olympia a couple of times, and then this one now, after I kind of got bullied into going to it 3 years ago, I've now been every year, and I've put games on for the last 2 years. So I'm kind of getting into the swing of it. I really enjoy it, to be honest. But I haven't paid for a ticket yet. So I had a press pass the first year, and then I've put games on for the two.
I mean, obviously, because we've been going for a few years, and because of our blogs and my channel and stuff like that, we've been getting press passes, and obviously that does make the day significantly cheaper for us. Despite living local, I do try and park in the car park, although that's a different rant for this year.
I believe so.
Yeah, we got turned away by some rather officious-looking security guards, told that if you didn't pre-book, you weren't getting in, and we ended up having to park in another car park 20 minutes away. And when you're absolutely exhausted and your knees are already grinding metal on metal, that walk was a killer back to the car, and we weren't even carrying a lot of stuff on the way back. So. But that has nothing to do with the organisers. That was Excel being dicks, basically.
Well, they didn't know nothing about it, did they? I mean, I spoke to that Peter, the logistics lead there, and his mouth was agog when I told him. And I said, "You better go and speak to someone." because
I mean, it's not like we wouldn't pre-book. I mean, next year, I'm going to Comic-Con next month. They Excel advised people to pre-book parking, and I've done just that. I pre-booked my parking for that event.
Yeah.
When next year comes Salute, I'll pre-book. No
Yeah.
problem. I've never had to before because the car park's usually empty.
Yeah, and I have to say, obviously, I had pre-booked but didn't know. So I probably had the same conversation with the same guy you did. But when he said, "Have you pre-booked?" I went, "Yeah." He's just let me through rather than anything else. But the car park was remarkably empty.
I expect
So
it was. Well, they must have lost a lot of money, XL there, turning everybody away, because not many people would have pre-booked. Not many at all.
No.
I mean, every year when I go in and I go to the south side of the car park because it's completely empty and I can park right next to the underground entrance. No walking, and you come up there, and usually Salute is one of the nearer units. This year we've had, like I say, a 20-minute walk from the car park when we got there, and then another 20 minutes back at the end of the day when you're exhausted. And it was never to do with the organisers. The show was fantastic, but that did take the shine off the day a little bit because I was in pain by the end of the day.
I mean, you met me and Lee. We're not the smallest of people. We've got large protrusions poking out of the front of our bodies. And
careful.
And I mean, Salute is an absolutely knackering show. And having to walk that 20 minutes back to the car instead of the normal 5 minutes, it did knock me up, and it must have knocked a lot of people up.
Definitely.
But unfortunately, that was XL. Nothing to do with.
Like you say, it's really weird because Salute is one day out of 365 in a year in a place that could hold maybe 10 salutes on the same day.
Yeah.
So you would think they would have had this issue before if it was an issue. But yeah, officialdom and rules.
Well, I got threatened with being banned from the show. I did. When I was, he was going to ban me, the guy. And so I had to curb my gob. Otherwise, we would have all been going home.
Or if we got a picture of like the FBI's top most wanted, Salute's top 10 banned, Ray's face in the
my face like
steam coming out of
the ear. I was like the Incredible Hulk.
But I have to say though, it shouldn't detract from what was a fantastic show. I mean, such a variety of games. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. All the traders, all of the demo games, they were surrounded by people. It was nice to see Kickstarters being launched there and things like that. And like I say, the traders seemed to be rammed with people, even right at the end of the day. I mean, by the time we'd gone round and looked at all the tables and taken photographs for our blogs and videos and stuff like that, we only had about an hour left for shopping at the end of the day. And the traders were still rammed. So it was incredibly successful. I mean, just anecdotally talking to some of the traders, they'd had a very good day, and that's good to hear. Really good to hear. Just shows that the hobby is still strong and varied, and that's one of the things I personally like about Salute is its variety. I may not want to play science fiction or fantasy war games anymore, but I still like looking at the figures, and I still appreciate the terrain, and it's just nice to see people enjoy themselves. And if you're any shade of wargamer and you turn up to Salute, you are going to find a game that tickles your fancy, and probably a dozen others as well. So, and while you're there, you'll see a really good award-winning war game, and maybe get tempted over to our side of the hobby. You never know.
So, think to the Mexican Revolution. I nearly punched the last one. Is it the Mexican Revolution? Fuck off! Sorry. You're trying to be polite and nice. Is it Mexican Revolution? I've spent 4 years of my life building this collection, and most of the figures I've had to get from somewhere else. They aren't even what they should be. But yeah. So, how did you feel about the mix of traders then? One thing that I kind of, again, putting my old school historical wargamer hat on, there was a lot more what I would call non-traditional people there selling, Moonstone was one that I remember. There was a guy dressed up on it, and individual games. And that was it. Wayland Games in the middle that just had this fucking like half the hall with bits of everything. It's not the Salute. It's not Salute's fault. It's more traditional game suppliers choosing not to attend. So, was there anyone you thought, Ray, that oh shit, I wish that they were here and I could have bought this?
I mean, I went with very little on my list to buy, to be perfectly honest. So I wasn't really worried about who was there or who was not. But I mean, I've got the same hat as you on. For me personally, there was too much sci-fi, fantasy, and all that other kind of stuff. Yeah, yes. But it's not my bag. If people are happy doing it, rock on. I don't particularly want to look at it, join in, or anything like that. Like Lisa, I don't mind looking at a good table, but I'm a bit upset when I see some funny figure running along. I want to see historical stuff, but that's me, my personal take.
You're thinking about chicken jousting and things like that.
Chicken, yeah. I mean, for Christ's sake, if it was jousting, proper jousting, horses and men, then I'm yes, I'll be on it, yeah, definitely. But I don't want to see things like that. And Salute always used to be a more historical show, but they have moved over to the dark side, and that's because they have to. They want to attract other people to the show, and unfortunately, the other people are all the people who want to play Moonstone and chicken jousting and all this other kind of stuff that's not my cup of tea. I would much prefer it to be more historical, but I'm not the one running the show.
I honestly thought that wargaming had reached the bottom when we had that fucking Emu War box set. I thought that was kind of the lowest that we could possibly go. I thought that was like our Prince Andrew moment. But chicken jousting,
I know it's
taken
weird.
over.
Where do they come up with these ideas?
However, it has to be said there were lots of families with young kids, and they sure as hell weren't going there for the historical games. They were probably there to buy Warhammer or whatever, but they were crowded around things like Joe Bilton's Khan game, for instance. So while they're there,
I could tell you this, Lee, they weren't going for the chicken jousting either.
But they're getting exposed to other historical games, and they're finding out that there is more to the hobby than Games Workshop or whatever, which is great. And if that's not their bag, then fine, because as long as they're happy and they're spending money within the hobby, then that's fine, because we all benefit from that. I mean, he was talking about the range of traders. Probably 2/3 of the traders there held no interest whatsoever for me, because I wasn't going to do a lot of shopping anyway. I made a short list of things I wanted, and in that last hour I whizzed around and I got most of the items I wanted. Let's face it, we all buy online these days, so it's not. I personally don't buy a lot at shows anymore. Pre-orders, pick them up, things like that, save a bit of postage. But the reality is, it's so easy to buy online that I'm not sure. I mean, in some ways it's sad, because obviously traders go to these shows, they want to sell money, they need to recoup their own costs from turning up for the day, and clearly they were busy. But for me, as a historical war gamer, I don't go to shows to spend money necessarily. It doesn't mean to say I haven't, and I did. I bought quite a few bits at Salute this year. But I was there to look at the games and to see what games are out there. There's going to be... There was a handful of traders that I had on my list, but probably 2/3 of the games traders I weren't that bothered in.
Do you think it's important? Would there come a point where it was tipped over, that it was so much sci-fi fantasy stuff and so little historical, that you started to think, do I want to go?
Well, I hope that never happens, but it's I think every year since COVID, that's what's happened. You've got more fantasy stuff, more sci-fi stuff. Again, I'm biased because I'm purely historical and it's not my bag, the fantasy stuff. I don't want it to turn into even was it a 50-50? It probably was a 50-50, to be honest, as it was. I don't want it to turn into a 60-40 or more, because is it worth me going then? Is it going to knock the historical gamer out of the picture? Well, I think, I might as well save my money, because I'm going to be taking 10 photos of some good historical games, and the rest, the other 100, are going to be fantasy stuff. That does worry me. It worries me for several reasons. Costings, because like Lee said, Lee lives closer to the XL than I do. I live, a million miles away. It's a 35-minute journey rather than a 20-minute journey. So yeah. So and we go to Partisan, and Partisan, you do have a few fantasy games there, but for the historical game, that's the show to go to.
It's the peak.
You just can't beat Partisan for historical games, and I wish Salute was more like that, because it's what I like to see. It's what I want. It feeds me looking at other people's games and thinking, oh God, that looks fantastic. I'm going to have to get that, and gives me ideas for campaigns and my future purchases and stuff like that. But obviously I don't get that with the fantasy games, because they're just not. It's not what I do.
Yeah,
that is a big worry, And I had a chat with Peter, the logistics guy, and he said they've got to invest in the fantasy people to get more people to go, which obviously worked. Like we said, they got 7,500 people there, for Christ's sake. So but it's just a shame that it's worked over like that, and they've felt the need to get the fantasy people there. I wish there was more historical people there, but it's not.
I think being fair to them, it's a difficult balance to make.
Yeah.
To please everyone. And how do you feel about it, Lee? Do you think it's gone too far? Are we about right place at the moment?
I mean, I was looking back through my pictures the first time I went to Salute, and it was significantly more historical back then. There's a bit of me that is sad for that not being the case, but it's not as if I'm being starved of historical games at other shows. So like you say, you want to see really good quality historical games, mostly historical games, go to something like Partisan. You want a good shopping experience, go to a show like Warfare or something else. Salute, I found it interesting because there was a lot of variety and a lot of traders that I could see, even if I didn't have time to. It's a pity the show isn't a 2-day event, because I'd have more time to go around and really explore the traders. But I know that's not just logistically impossible. But so I was comfortable with the breakdown as it is this year. I would hate it to see less historical there, because I just think they were by far. And I was thinking about my list of the games that I liked most, and when I finished my list, they're all historical games. Now, partly because obviously that's my bag. That's what I'm. It's what floats my boat. So I'm obviously going to be guided towards that. But actually, they were the best looking tables. It wasn't just a case of they're historical. They were the best looking tables by a country mile. So it would be. I think the show would be lessened if it had less historical there. It would be weakened if it had less historical games there, because they are the best tables. They are the real eye poppers. The Berlin table by the retired Wargamers Reloaded, and they're building the Right State building. Incredible,
magnificent.
Really, or the Khan game, Joe Bilton's Khan game. I mean, insane. I was looking at it. I could have stood there and spent the whole day looking at that game. And of course, somebody else's game. It was
an award-winning game. An award-winning game. But I think there's also kind of a general issue in the hobby, in that a lot of the more recognised traders are retiring. Charlie Foxtrot said he's going to retire the last couple of days ago. Magister Militum, who would always have a big stand, they've knocked it on the head and sold the bits and pieces off. I'm trying to think of people now, but the likes of, the classics for me, like Elite Miniatures, haven't done shows for years. AB Figures, they weren't there. Rapid Fire, they don't come there. And it's, are there those companies still around that are prepared to do shows? For First Call, Courtney's Miniatures up near me, they don't do shows at all now. They do everything online. And it may be difficult for Salute to fill the available slots with classic historical traders.
I think that is that is the problem. People are unwilling to come down, spend that money to put on their display, bring their stock down. And a lot of these companies are from the Midlands or up north, so it's going to cost an arm and a leg to come down. There'll be a couple of them as well, so they're spending 500 quid just to turn up to the show straight away. So I can understand their reasoning, but there's nothing like going to a show, seeing some figures on display, some new figures, getting them in your hand and looking at them and thinking, yeah, I'm going to buy some of them. Because you can't do that online. You can look at them and think, oh, they look fantastic. But then when they arrive in the post, they're giants and they don't fit in with everything else you've got. And you think, oh, Christ, that's 40 quid gone up the Swanee. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see the figures, in the flesh. But it seems to be happening everywhere now, doesn't it?
I think my main concern is you see a lot of companies coming. We always talk. It seems ever since I've been in the hobby, you're always talking about companies that are going bust or they're retiring and that. My main concern is are they selling their figure ranges on so they live on with a different company? And that's usually the case, but it's not exclusively the case. So long as those figures ranges remain available, then you're going to expect some turnover. People can't work forever. We've bought stuff from Charlie Foxtrot's. I totally understand. He's reached a point where he's decided he's going to retire. I'm hoping that another company will buy his products and keep them going.
I think they will because of quality.
Yeah,
they are quality. We've spoken about it, through this discussion, and the volume of visitors was absolutely astounding to me. And as we've spoken about, a lot of shows now that I go to, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, they're just dead. 4:30 was the first chance I got to leave the table and have like a 20-minute run round and quickly look at stuff. So how did you feel about the mix of people rather than the numbers? We spoke about the numbers quite a lot, but I felt there was a lot more younger people. There was a lot more couples. There was the usual weird people dressed as Space Marines and shit like that. But it felt different somehow in that. It wasn't all people smoking pipes over your table going, I think you'll find that those Ron Parlours didn't exist.
I totally agree with what you said. There were lots of kids, a lot of kids. And there were lots of ladies, girls, whether they were partners being dragged along or looked like a lot of them were actual gamers, which was nice to see. Again, were they just on the fantasy side? Probably, but it's good to see a mixed bunch of people because previous shows it was bloody hell, there's a woman over there. It didn't happen, but now in that show there were a lot of the female persuasion.
And I spoke to a couple of young lads who were working in the Salute Centre itself. There was a lad who was a chef and another lad who was doing some filming, and they were absolutely gobsmacked with what they'd seen. They'd never seen anything like it in their lives. And I was just having a chat with this lad, and his eyes were wide open. He said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And then I was showing him the figures and everything, just brilliant. So it was great to see different. It's always nice to see old faces. I don't want to not see you two there and have a chat, But it was also lovely to see new faces as well,
Yeah.
and have a good chat with them.
We were saying there was a lot of families, and it was nice to see kids around gaming tables of different types, historical games and fantasy games and whatever. But everyone seemed to be having a good time. I didn't see anyone with any grumpy faces. Maybe a few exhausted people towards the end of the day, but everyone was laughing and seemed to be enjoying themselves. They're certainly spending a lot of money. So, if you wanted a barometer of whether the hobby's healthy or not, you only got to go to that salute and go, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And yes, the show's completely different to other wargame shows. But it just means there's a bit of variety. I wouldn't want to go to every wargame show and they all be the same. So, they've all got their own character, and that's fine by me. And if Salute's not your thing, if you really don't want to do it, then don't worry about it. There's other shows to go to. But if you're broader interests, and make it sound a bit dodgy there, but if you've got a wider range of interests, and you like to see the whole of the hobby, then Salute is a really good showcase for the whole of the hobby. All different types of people mixing together, having fun, maybe discovering games they didn't know. And I hope that some fantasy and sci-fi gamers that went to the show saw a really good historical game and thought, do you know what, I might try this.
Award-winning one.
Yeah. You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
I think
they'll all be out buying Mexicans next week.
Fucking hell, they've all bought the wrong stuff. So, one of the problems of shows and organising shows is getting people through the door. And one of the things I like about Salute is the kind of other things, the other activities that they bring to get people through the door. And just fancy to get your guys' thoughts on that. We've got the painting tables. Some places there'll be places where you can build models. There'll be painting challenges. There'll be the talks. How important is that to bring people in, and more importantly, keep them in?
Well, I think after the COVID Salute, they had to come up with a plan, and it was a plan that to change Salute because it was such a poor showing, and whether they were some of the things they thought up. I mean, I don't think they did the talks before then. I'm not aware of them. Yeah, we're like post COVID, but I mean the talks are a great draw, to be honest.
Yes,
the likes of us mere mortals can go in here. Whoever we want to sit and listen to is a fantastic thing to do. We went to Alex Southern's one, go quite to plan because we couldn't hear what he was saying because his mic was broke. Which was very disappointing. Lee's waiting to say something else there. Look,
he normally talks rubbish. You've not missed out.
Yeah, but I mean that was it was. I mean I watch his videos and that, so it would have been really nice to listen to what he was saying, but you couldn't. There was other people there who were, for want of a better word, a bit louder than Alex. Just very, very. That's all I'll say on that bit. I'm kind
of glad I wasn't on that panel because I would have said something.
Yeah, it was a difficult. I mean, I said to Lee, about 10 minutes in, I can't take this anymore. Let's go. And I was pleased that we were sitting down because my back was killing me, my legs was killing me, my head was pounding. So I wanted to sit down for half an hour, but I thought I can't listen to this anymore. Let's go. Come on. And he gradually got up and walked behind me, poor sod.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge for them at Salute to put the right people on the right panels and get a good mix of people. But then you don't know how people are going to, I'll say, behave in something like that until they're in it. And you just don't know how. And again, how are they going to mix? Because I when I did mine, there was Kev Dallimore, cracking lad, really nice to talk to. Alessandro Cavatori, I don't like his rule sets, but lovely, nice lad. Peachy, again, I don't do anything that he does, but he's a cracking lad. And then this American filmmaker, and the first thing he says is, I've made this film, and it's not about old blokes in cellars playing historical games. So when it comes to me, I goes, well, I'm an old bloke who plays historical war games in a fucking cellar, you dickhead. So there was a bit of tension there, but I was fine. I'm fine with it. But so you just don't know, do you? Sometimes you'll get that magic
aren't
mix.
they? And it must be very difficult to get a happy mix. I mean, whether they should mix fantasy, sci-fi with historicals, you kind of hope you can, and you can get a good conversation going. But for me, that didn't work. It might have worked for the other 100 people who were sitting watching it. It might well have done. But it didn't for me.
The panels certainly seem popular, don't they? I mean, they've done a really good job of making the panels work. The way they've set it up, you'd think that it's too noisy, but they've got it set up, and when the microphones work, you can usually hear pretty well. And like you say, they've organised it. They've asked these people to take part, and I think that it'd be sad if the panels didn't continue, because I think they've become a fun
I can't
element.
see why they won't. They're going to continue because it's a great idea. It really is.
Yeah, I think they dropped the number of people on the panel this year from 5 to 4, and that should have made it easier because you've got more time to talk. And we've been going for 3 hours plus here, and there's just 3 of us, whereas you're getting 50 minutes with 5 of you or 4 of you. There's very little time to talk, and if you get one person on the panel who over talks or talks for longer, then it compresses the amount of time that I'll quite happily say it in 2 words. What do you think of this? Oh shit. Next one.
I think if you're going to have a small panel and a limited amount of time, you need a very clear definition of what is this panel going to talk about. What are the questions? I got the impression from the panel that we sat in that it was a little bit more freeform than that. I mean, I could be wrong. And therefore there was a bit more time for time got wasted on them talking about themselves rather than what the topic was. Whereas when I sat in with your panel the year before last, that seemed much more focused because they had somebody asking the questions and going from person to person. So it needs to be organised and tightly done. But do you know what? Every time we walked past the panels area and you looked in, it was full. So it was clearly popular. And I'm sure it wasn't just because you can sit down, because there was plenty of seating this year.
No, absolutely. It was just a shame on Alex's one that he was with people who just did fantasy.
Yeah.
So he was totally out on his own and had nothing really in common with the people he was with, apart from.
Do you remember what Alex's talk was? What was the title of it? What was the topic?
I don't think. No, I can't.
Hobby Heroes.
Was it Hobby Heroes? Was it?
Yeah.
So maybe that's a little bit difficult in that it's not got a. I think there was one earlier, big games in small scales, and surprisingly, they didn't ask me to go on that one.
They've been burned once.
Would have been interesting. But yeah, so I think it's a good thing. I think it's a positive thing. And again, you're relying on the people who are in the panel and the person who's running it. But I think overall it's a good idea and it keeps people there. Mix of demo to participation. Seemed to be a lot of participation games. I think it was over half, if I remember right.
I mean, most of the participation games were the fantasy ones. Apart from, is it Joe Bilton's game? There were loads of people playing that one, and a lot of kids playing that one, which was good to see.
Yeah, fantastic.
I can't remember. Was there any other historical ones that were participation?
Well, there was a couple of the Kickstarter ones, that Butcher and Bolt and the 1918.
Oh, 1918.
People around them. Yeah, so they were obviously getting people to have a try out because they're going to start their Kickstarters. So they were nice looking, small tables, very, but nice looking terrain, and it looks like an interesting sets of rules and skirmish types, obviously. So that's the way the hobby seems to be going, which is fine. A lot of people can only do that. It was nice to see those tables busy and surrounded by people. So, as long as I can see the table to take a photograph, I don't care whether people are playing the game or just demonstrating the game. I think when it's a demo game, you're more likely to be able to have a conversation with the guys running the table and find out about what figures they've used, what research and done, and all that sort of thing. Whereas if it's a participation game, they are quite rightly focused on the people taking part in their game, and so maybe less time to talk to passers-by. But you get that. Partisan, where half the hall is participation games.
It's an interesting point or interesting thought I've just had of whether do you engage with more people doing a participation game over, let's say, 4 people for an hour, or doing a demo game where you're talking with lots of people coming up to the table on a rotating basis? Is the fact that you're doing a participation game, and as you rightly say, Lee, they're concentrating on the people who are playing, who's engaging with more people?
I think they if they're trying to sell a Kickstarter or something, they're having really high quality conversations and people investing themselves in that game. And some people like to go to a show to take part in the game. So they are good quality conversations from the point of view of someone selling a product. But I know from our small game that we run at Broadside that providing you've got enough people manning the table, you can talk to a lot of people. So we tend to have a big group of the rejects turn up. A lot of us turn up. I think we had about 10 people last time.
Yeah, I think we did, didn't we? Yeah.
And while 3 or 4 people play the game, and just because that's all they want to do, and that's fine, they play the game, and the rest of us hover around the table talking to as many people as possible. So you can have a lot more conversations. But then we're not selling something; we're demonstrating it. So it's a different dynamic, isn't it? If you're selling something, you want to make those people that come up to your table, you want them to invest some time because they're more likely to then go on and spend some money on your product.
Not just because they're buying the stuff. You're exactly right what you said there, Lee. It's we've spent a lot of time putting a game together, painting the figures, doing all the terrain. You're selling yourself, and you're selling the idea of the game as well, aren't you? That last one, the show we did, I wanted people to say to me, "That game looks great. I think I'm going to get some of them figures." And that to me is that's what I want out of it, because I want people to be impressed with what they see, so they want to go and buy the figures. I get nothing out of it apart from them saying, "Oh, that's a brilliant looking game." So I think that's got to come into it as well. But you have a lot of trouble with some games because they're only there to play the game, and they're not interested in you trying to take a photo, you trying to engage them in a conversation about their game. They're all got their heads down, and they're not interested. So you think, well, why did you turn up? You could have done this game in your shed, in the garage, on your weekly night, wherever you guys meet up. That you're taking a game to a show. You're there for the public. You're not there for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's going that side of things does seem to be slipping away, and there's more, engagement tables, as I would like to call them. I was looking where I was. I always talk to everyone and not play the game, which allows the game to move and other people to, as you were saying, Lee, with your tables. And then you've got the lardies kind of in the next row, and you've got Joe with that magnificent Khan game. You've got the lardies themselves demoing games. So it's quite a bubbly atmosphere, if you like. There's lots of chat going on. Do you ever take part in participation games at shows?
I've never done it.
You've never done it?
Never done it. I'd like to do it, but I don't ever find the time to do it at a show.
Yeah.
I've done a couple, but again, like you say, never got the time.
No, that's it. I'd love to. There was a couple of games there. There was a game by the Cornwall War Game Association.
Oh yes, yeah.
The Port Royal 1692. Now that's my period, and we had a good chat with a guy, and I really wanted to go back and have a go of the game. Just didn't get the chance because
it can be more difficult at places like Salute as well, because you've got the time constraint, as you guys said already. You were, you weren't hanging around, but you struggled to get everything in during the day. And also with the volume of people there, I can imagine that getting a seat at a table wouldn't have been particularly easy either.
No.
Is there a worry, or would you shy away from a table if it was trying to sell you something? So you guys are doing your, if you were doing a participation game, you're, as you said, Ray, selling the hobby, selling the idea of the game, but you're not actually selling the figures. So would that put you off if somebody was trying to sell you the game?
I think
he's broken.
I think it'd annoy me more than anything else. If I go to and see a table that I like, I want to know about the game. Just a 10-minute chat with a guy, lovely, thank you very much, and then I'm off. But if it's a period that, I'd like to buy them figures, then I'm more inclined to have a bit of a longer chat, find out a little bit more information. But you don't really tend to get that with the historical stuff. I know, Lee mentioned two great games, the submarine game, the Butcher and Bolt. That looked fantastic. That really did.
Yeah.
But it was such a small table. It was such a small table, you couldn't get in there to talk to the guys because I think there was only two guys there, and they were busy playing the game with the other people there. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't have had that conversation. Yeah. But it's just one of them things. I think
one of the things that I thought was that there was a lot of small demo games for probably excellent little games, but they only had one or two members of staff. So and the table was small, so you can only fit so many people around that table. Really, if you're going to do that, you need some satellite people to be wandering around talking to other members that aren't going to stop to play. I don't know. Maybe it's not economical to do that if you're a small company that's going to put on a show, put on a demo at a show. But if that's your launch for a new product, I think you need to really throw staff at it so that there's what we've found when we're just trying to sell our hobby and say, look, we're enjoying it, you can enjoy this too. But it works when you've got a large group because people can play the game, or in this case, run the participation so that there's figures moving around. But you then need a satellite of other people catching people as they go past. And if they're not interested and they're clearly trying to get away from you madly, then you can let them go. But there's plenty of people who might stop for 5 minutes, just want a quick chat. Like you say, ask about the figures. Oh, is this a new Kickstarter? Or where did you buy the figures? What period is it? All that sort of stuff. You could. And again, if you're not going to put up decent bleeding signage for that table, then you need to replace them with a person who's going to come around and tell you about the game. And there was plenty of little games where there was either the signage was invisible because it was behind a wall of participants, or it didn't exist at all, and there was no one else around to tell you about it. So we didn't have a chance of knowing what those games were.
I mean, there's a massive inherent bias with myself, but I think small tables get lost at shows like Salute. They're so easy. They can be absolutely brilliant for 2 foot square or 3 foot square, and you can walk past it and not see it. Whereas Joe's table, you ain't walking past that.
No, there was no missing that table. That was huge and amazing. And we've all done it. I mean, I produce a video, try and produce a video of the games I've taken, and invariably I'll go and watch somebody else's video of the same show, and I go, I didn't see that table. I didn't see that game.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, exactly. So, like you say, the smaller tables, there is a danger that they can get lost in such a vast hall, isn't there?
Very true. And speaking of missing things, my little rant. I don't know whether you've noticed this, is Who stole all the fucking hills on the historical games? Joe Bilton, fantastic. Street scene, no hills. Simon Miller, as always, absolutely brilliant with his grid. No hills. Retired Wargamers, massive Berchtesgaden, Reichstag. Yeah. No fucking hills. Warwick Kincaid, Soldiers of Napoleon.
Did your game, that award-winning game, have any hills?
Table. The award-winning game had award-winning fucking hills.
Yeah. I think
the ginormous Lord of the Rings one with a castle at the end. No hills. The Westeros game, the Game of Thrones. No hills.
Yeah.
Can I just say?
I think when you're going to put on a demo game in particular, you need elevation to make that table interesting. I mean, obviously, nice, colourful figures and an interesting layout, but elevation does wonders. I mean, we've run a game before where he had an observation balloon, like 3 foot in the air, and it played no part in the game whatsoever, but it added elevation to the table.
Yeah. It was just my little rant going round, in my half an hour run round. I'm starting to go, where are the hills? If I turned up with a stall selling wargaming hills rather than putting a game on, I'd have gone home with a full van, because just nobody had any hills on. I mean, I'll give the space games and the sea games, I'm going to let them off because you don't get many hills in space. But everyone else, come on, let's see it. Let's have Salute 53, the Salute of the Hills. I think is a very good one to have. So anyway, that was my little rant that I had to get in because it was driving me nuts on the way around. And of course, if I'm doing Narvik next year, I'll have fucking fjords and everything, so there'll be massive loads of stuff. So we'll kind of draw into the end, and I think generally positive from everyone. If there was negatives, it was little niggles.
Yeah, no, the show itself I thought was excellent. Any issues we had were to do with the venue and the organ and the Excel, and I mean, unfortunately, it's the only venue that's big enough to hold a show like Salute, and unfortunately, there are just some negatives that you're just going to have to put up with. And if it's really that much of a put off here, don't go to a different show. But I think everyone that went had a good time, and the organisers did a stunning job. Considering they're volunteers, it's a club running it. I don't know how they do it. It's incredible. Incredible feat of organisation, isn't it?
No, it's a massive job.
Although, in terms of organisation, I'd just like to say that on the night before the show, they organised a meet-up for traders and display games, etc., and advertised it as the Fox Public House, the XL. Now, I'm a northerner. I don't understand many things down south, but there was a pub near my hotel called the Connaught Fox, which was not the pub that the meeting was at. The pub that the meeting was at was the Fox near the other entrance. So after 2 pints and thinking, where the fuck is everyone? We walked all the way down there. And when we got there, they did a fantastic job. They got a little area. They put a buffet on. They put some drinks on. But by the time we got there, there's like one chicken wing and a sort of bent egg mayonnaise sandwich and no drinks left. So it was a nice idea.
Dear.
And then in the first pub, it was all right. It was 14 quid for 2 beers, which is a fucking lot of money. You could buy a working men's club for that, never mind a round. And we went into the second pub, the Fox, 14 quid for 2 pints. in plastic fucking glasses. It's like, oh, hang on, we've got Northerners in. They might start fighting. Oh, dear me. What can I say?
London prices, I'm afraid. London prices.
So, are we going again next year?
Yeah, I'll be going again.
Yes, definitely.
Barring something that will get me crucified. If there's a family holiday, that's the only reason I won't be going. But otherwise, I will be going. I mean, if nothing, for no other reason, when I put out a show video following Likes of Salute, it's the best performing video of the year. And it always attracts loads of new subscribers to my channel. So from a purely mercenary point of view, it's worth doing.
Evil point of view.
No, it's a fun show, lots of variety, and it's on my doorstep.
Media whore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but no, it's just I with the loss of Selwig, it's the biggest show on my doorstep. And I come over to Kent, I bring the elephant gun and my passport, and I go over to Kent to join the lads for a lot of the little shows in Kent. But, the two big shows that were in London, obviously Selwig's bit the dust, unfortunately. So it's Salute, and it's so close to me, it would be a crime not to go.
Is there anything, Ray, that you could think of that you'd love to see there? And an improvement, an activity, or a trader, or something that would make it better for Ray.
Better for me would just be more historical stuff. I don't care what it is, as long as it's ahistorical, whether that's traders or games. Just because that's what floats my boat, and that's it really. If we can have a big improvement of that, and then with the talks they have, please try to get the right people talking with the right people. Yeah, that's it. I think I can't think of anything else. Free parking would be good, but that ain't going to happen.
No, very good, Lee.
Yeah. Obviously, as I'm biased, I would like to see more historical stuff at the show, but it is what it is. I can't really think of. I mean, loads of people moan about how expensive the food is and all that sort of thing. We'll bring a bloody packed lunch, That's what I usually do. I don't bother wasting money on catering and £5 for a bottle of water or something stupid. I bring my own drink. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I think the panels have been a great addition, and I'm glad they've done that. And if they can think of something else that works, then that would be great. But I think it's a cracking show as it is. It's just the only thing I would probably like to see is it extended to a 2-day show, but I just know it's not practical.
So difficult.
Because there's just not enough time. It's the fun thing we have every year. We're getting older and slower. And between that and the fact that we talk to everybody, by the time you've gone around 110 demo games or games, you ain't got time to do the shopping and all that. So it's hard work for old geezers like us. And we could do with it being a longer show, but it is what it is. It's still brilliant for it's unique. It is unique in the UK Wargames calendar, and I think the guys organising it have done a stellar job, and I hope they go from success to success, because that was brilliant to see so many people enjoying themselves at this show this year.
I think our chat's kind of proved it. It's a very positive thing. The attendance was amazing. The only concerns that I've got really is that balance between historical, sci-fi, fantasy, and trying. That's the challenge, I think, for the Salute organisers, is to try to keep that balance, to keep everyone happy. And I think everyone was happy this year. But we've talked about the historical traders who are knocking it on the head. People like myself who are putting games on and are getting older. We're not getting any younger, which is why it's great to see the likes of Joe Bilton putting stuff on. He'll be around for a long time. So it's that ability, I think, to keep it interesting for everyone, and that's the challenge that Salute have got. So, guys, I want to thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a long one, but we knew it would be. Hopefully, we haven't dehydrated too much in the hot weather. So, I always end the show with giving my guests who I've asked questions of 3.5 hours if they've got a question for me. So, Lee, have you got one, or have I escaped?
I haven't thought of something.
No, I'll go without. I'll go without. I'm quite happy.
I don't know. Let Ray go first. I'll have a think.
Ray, Ray, have you got one? This is
Well,
where Ray says no.
I've got well, two questions really. What's in store for you after Narvik? Have you thought of anything yet? Two?
After Narvik, af- after Narvik is Plansonoir, which is
Oh,
I've just literally started painting the figures for that. And there's
right,
there's
excellent,
always a return to the Italian Wars. I'd like to bring the Italian Wars to Salute at some stage as well.
fantastic. I'd like to see that again. That'd be good. Well, the other question is it's not really a question; it's a request.
Well, look, go
Yeah.
on. One quick one there. I'm going to jump in here. Quick question for you. Would you ever consider doing any of your projects in 6mm?
Um, you may be surprised at the Joy of Six, where you might see one of them.
Ooh. That'd be interesting then.
That'll be interesting. Uh, Ray,
The second question is: once we've got it up and running, are you willing to come down to Gravesend, sunny Gravesend, and play a game of sharp practice with our 1812 project?
of course I will, mate. I'll be honoured. I'll be honoured. How far's Gravesend south of London, though?
21 miles.
Oh, so a bus ride.
You can walk it.
Well, yeah, easy. Northerner like me. I walk it in my t-shirt in an hour. Don't you worry. That'd be lovely, mate. I'd be an honour to come down to the shed. That just leaves us to say good night to
Excellent.
our audience, guys, and thank you once again.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Cheers, Ken.
There we go. There is the end of the episode. And thank you very much to Ray and Lee for their time. And I think really good discussion there about Salute, both positives and negatives. I think the show has come on such a long way since the COVID show that kind of looked like it was going to fail, as we said earlier on. And kudos to the lads who have brought it through to the success that it was a couple of weeks ago. And I hope to be there again next year with a display game, hopefully Narvik. If not, it'll be Italian Wars. And I look forward to my trip down to London. I really did enjoy the visit this year, even the long journey back home. So next issue or next episode, sorry, I'm going to be catching up once again with Paul Thompson and his in archaeological investigations into a German raid in World War II on the Isle of Wight, which is turning into a fascinating story. A book came out about it a number of years ago, and a lot of historians kind of rubbished it. And I've had a couple of people contact me and go, "Oh, did you not read the book? I think it's a, you know." But the work that Paul is doing is absolutely superb. It's methodical. It's proper archaeology. It's proper forensic investigation into the evidence that's been found there during proper archaeological investigation of the site. And he's had military people there and everything. So it's not jumping to conclusions. It's not conclusion led. It's very much evidence led. And I'm actually quite looking forward to speaking to Paul next week and getting an update from him that I can pass on to you. So if that doesn't come out before Partisan in a week or so's time, I will have the AWI Germantown game there, which is a bit of a memorial to my friend Dave Parrott, who passed away. Be using a lot of his figures for that game. He built the American Army, and I have built the British Army. So I look forward to seeing you there. If not, then the next podcast will be out very soon. Until then, see thee.